OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30. It's Monday morning. It's Jaron Owen with you all the way through until 10 a.m. this morning. Normally on the show, this is the bit where I lie and say we're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but tonight to this morning, there you go, already screwed up. We're a bit bleary-eyed. I got sucked in, Owen. Instead of just going to bed and realising that the game was up, McIlroy made just enough of a charge to think, okay, well, what if Scheffler goes in the water? I might miss something. So, like, I actually had turned the phone off at one point and left the notifications on and the phone up, and so therefore the whole room was into brightness as it was like, oh, blah, blah, blah happened. I can't even remember what stage of the evening it was, and then ended up watching pretty much until the end.
A good decision or a bad decision?
I don't know, bad decision. I mean, okay, so I saw the bunker shot, which was great, and Rory's excitement, and that's good, but like, it wasn't close. We lulled ourselves into this weird sense that this is somehow close when it wasn't.
No, and Cameron Smith did exactly what everybody wanted Scotty Scheffler to do. And unfortunately, the most hated man in the world last night, Scotty Scheffler, went and played good golf and held his nerve after an early wobble, I think it's fair to say. I think that was the chance. That was the opportunity for drama to happen, was the third hole. If he had run past the flag there,
yeah.
The Sky commentary were pretty convinced that it was an exceptional shot and it was going to stop a couple of feet after the hole, and they'd obviously know better than most people, so that was probably going to be the truth. But I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if that doesn't go in. It's a straightforward putt for Scheffler. So I think that looking out there, and he deserved his luck for sure, just got him back onto an even keel, because those first couple of holes were definitely shaky. And
even in the aftermath, in the post-round interview, McIlroy pointed out that his driving disintegrated over the last 5 or 6 holes, and like the birdie on 18 isn't a fluke, but it's a fluke. You know, it's a get out of jail birdie to add a tiny little bit of pressure, and Scheffler missed the birdie putt on around about the same time. Or was that one of his few bogeys in the back nine? I can't even remember. It has definitely all blended.
No, the birdie putt around that time, yeah. He misses, yeah.
But it wasn't enough. Like, he, you know, as McIlroy said, it's his best ever round. It was one shot off the course record. He needed to set a new course record to put the pressure properly on Scheffler. But that 3-stroke cushion was always going to be enough for the world number one, who was playing amazing golf all week.
Yeah, dominant. It was only ever going to be Cameron Smith if it wasn't going to be Scotty Scheffler, really. And like, McIlroy did exactly what he needed to do on the final day, but unfortunately just hadn't enough done on the first couple of days. So it was always going to be a head-to-head, and I think that once Scheffler saw Smith hit the water on 12, I think that was it. That was certainly game over in his view. Although there was clearly still nerves there. I mean, his inability to get the ball in the hole on 18 was pretty funny. It took him 3 putts, and he eventually was a double bogey the 18th in the end. So there was definitely, like, he said it afterwards, that he was in tears the morning of his final round. He said he was really, really struggling to handle the nerves of the final round, and you know, even his wife was saying stuff like, I mean, if you don't win, you know, I'm still going to love you. It's all going to be fine if you don't win. As she was making breakfast on Sunday by all accounts. So he kind of opened up on that yesterday, but outside of that, his public pronouncements and all that were very refined and very put together over the few days, especially on Saturday after he was interviewed, knowing that he'd be sleeping on a massive lead going into the final round at Augusta. He was asked, you know, are you going to think about the green jacket? And he was like, yeah, not really. And there was a very kind of chilled out, relaxed version of Scheffler that he put out there. But as we now know, it was exactly the opposite, and I think it's the same for most people who are going after their first title at Augusta.
Yeah, and like, look, he is obviously an incredible golfer, and that's going to be one of those stories. Larry, if he hadn't had his triple bogey, we might have seen a bit more of him. There's people in our Twitter feed complaining about how few shots of his on the final round we saw, and there was definitely a 5 or 6 hole gap almost in the immediate aftermath of the triple bogey, where it was like, well, there's no point in showing him anymore, and then he ends up finishing third. Which is a remarkable, excellent performance, but he will be very disappointed that Saturday went the way it did, because he must be feeling that there was another 5 or 6 shots out there for him.
Yeah, and he would have been in a great position if he had, you know, been maybe one back behind Smith going into the final day, so that he wasn't in that final group, and that, you know, I guess Scheffler would have had an eye on him going forward. That's exactly what you want to be when you're chasing, but he'd have left himself just a little bit too much to do on the final day. Like, it's hard to know what would have happened if he didn't have that triple bogey early on. Would he have still finished in excellent fashion? Kind of felt like he was playing angry golf at the end, and it worked for him. And it's like, I mean, we can't deny the fact that this was an excellent Irish tint on this Masters leaderboard with a second and third place at the Masters. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we're a bit blasé about it, aren't we?
Like, yeah, we definitely take this sort of stuff for granted. And there were Larry in particular was excellent throughout the week. And I think a lot of people have said, and I know John in his virtual insanity picks last week always makes the point that Augusta's kind of suited to Larry, and he hasn't played it enough times for him to be haunted by the things that have gone wrong for him at the course. But what will happen is that today will go down this week will go down as a really positive experience, and that's the sort of bedrock of confidence that maybe means that you're looking at Larry as a contender next year.
All right. Did you watch everything else over the weekend?
Yeah, basically, yeah, from Connacht Leinster on Friday to the jumble of stuff on Saturday and yesterday. Really, there's a lot of dual screening going on.
Kind of forgotten Saturday. What happened Saturday?
I suppose you had Ulster Toulouse on Saturday. You had Manchester United against Everton. You had Munster against Exeter. You had the Masters, obviously, on Saturday. Arsenal on Saturday.
How much of the Arsenal-Brighton game did you watch?
A good bit, to be fair.
You called it the slow car crash, the fast car crash. Turns out it was a...
Not surprising.
It was a blowout back tyre on the Autobahn.
Yeah, they've kind of regressed massively, and nobody could foresee the injuries that they would have, except maybe Kieran Tierney because he's quite injury prone. But nobody could have foreseen the full extent of what it would have done. And they have the same. But as a result of 2 injuries, their entire midfield has been completely wiped out. And once you lose your midfield, you're screwed. And Tottenham Hotspur, turns out, are very, very good, and they were always going to keep the pressure on. And maybe anyway, even if Arsenal had everybody fit, they would have gone into that North London derby on the last Thursday of the season, the third last game or whatever it is, and got beaten anyway. Turns out that game is actually not going to matter anymore, which is disappointing. Unless Arsenal win every game between now and then and Spurs drop a few points, which isn't beyond the bounds of possibility because they do have to play Liverpool.
No, and I don't know, I was searching when the news came through about Matt Doherty and his injury and him being out for the rest of the season. I was searching on Twitter for him and found a Spurs equivalent of Arsenal Fan TV, and they had christened him Diego Maradockerty.
I like it.
I mean, I was like, we never thought of this.
Yeah.
But they were, and there was a little bit of pushback. It was like, no, I'm not having it. It's like, and then his stats since Conte has put him in the team were off the charts. Like the most creative, most goal involvements of, and I think Trent was ahead of him as a right back, but everybody else wasn't. Nobody else was ahead of him. So, Diego Maradockerty, we salute you on your recovery this season, and we wish you the very best and a very speedy recovery. And we hope that you get back to the form that you're in, because there's a 3 or 4 years at the top level of the Premier League ahead of him if he can just get back fit. Get more details on that injury for you a little bit later on in the show. But 7:38 this morning, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. Mark Lawrenson at 8:10. Sports pages at 8:30. Ashing O'Reilly's in Sweden for the Republic of Ireland and their qualifier, which is live tomorrow at 5:30. Alan Quinlan's going to join us today. 50. Nathan's going to join us at 10:09. We're going to hear from Fiona Hayes about the weekend's rugby around about 9:30 as well. But at 7:38, it's time for the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performance was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. Right.
We, as ever, on a Monday morning, go through the good, the bad and the grand from the weekend sport. We will start with the bad, as ever, and a couple of football talking points here. We're going with a list of individuals today. We're calling people out, or actually just pointing out how unlucky they've been in certain situations. Not quite sure who's in a worse situation this morning. Matt Doherty, obviously his season's over, but Eric Ten Hag walking in the door at Manchester United mustn't be an overly excited man after what he's seeing at the moment from Manchester United. The result on Saturday, another disaster for United. Didn't really look like they were up for the game whatsoever after what Burnley had done to Everton midweek, and then for that Everton team to turn Manchester United over is humiliating for
Fortress Goodison, Frank Lampard, he's back.
It exists. It's definitely a thing, Fortress Goodison, and also you kind of have to laugh at Burnley getting beaten at the weekend as well, right? On the road, after Sean Dyche was saying these lads won't lay glove on us. They're on the road. They can't do anything on the road. Burnley go on the road last weekend, and they end up getting beaten, which is quite funny. I mean, you got to give...
At Norwich.
At Norwich, sorry. That is the key point here. You got to feel a little bit happy for Frank Lampard getting that one back over Sean Dyche. Oh, no, I'm having it.
You like Frank Lampard?
No, I like him in this situation. I like Frank Lampard.
You'd pick Lampard over Dyche.
In this week, I think it's pretty funny when people have egg on their face, and even if I love them or hate them.
Right. Well, there was enough egg to go around. I mean, maybe Lampard makes it out now. It looks like he's going to get. Look, this is definitely one of those relegation battles where you can't pencil in points for anybody just yet.
No. So on Ten Hag.
Why is he in the red? Come on, he's got like the best job in the world, right? Antonio Conte has just said this week, it's amazing that we have a week off. Harry Kane is so unbusy, he ends up doing golf commentary for Sky at the Masters last night. He was like a walk-on, late call-up. Come on, you're here, you can come on. What? You're just playing football yesterday against... No game for a week because they're out of everything. We're out of every cup, says Antonio Conte. That's what's important. And that's what's going to be the situation for the new Manchester United manager next year. They're not even going to be good enough to qualify for the European Conference League, which is exactly what you want. If you're coming in, you're like, I've got a week to prepare for every game. I'm going to get knocked out of the League Cup very early. I'm going to throw my hat at the FA Cup and say no thanks in my first season. Bad omen for Dutch managers winning the FA Cup at Manchester United. And I'll have no games except the 30-odd league games, and that's it. That
will be ideal. There's still a chance, obviously, that they qualify for the Conference League or the Europa League if Arsenal and West Ham drop like lead over the next couple of weeks, which isn't beyond the bounds of possibility. But like away from that, I'm talking about Ten Hag looking at what Manchester United has done to managers over the last little while. And I'm not saying the managers are like not guilty or culpable in any failings at the club. I'm just saying name a manager post Alex Ferguson who has come out of Manchester United without their reputation in tatters. Maybe Van Gaal to a point, but his reputation has been diminished rather than being destroyed and being left in tatters. Whereas, like, you look at everybody else and it seems that their stock has plummeted. And Ten Hag knows that, and he's going into this with his eyes wide open. And he looks at a man like Ralph Rangnick, whose stock was pretty high, you'd have to say, last December, and was well thought of. Maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe reputation isn't important. But it definitely feels that the Ralph Rangnick stocks have plummeted over the last little while. And it's hard to even know if he's the guy to blame because so many other managers have come in and failed miserably. On top of that then, like, because we pointed the fingers at managers for so long over the last little while, I think maybe the players and their quality, and I'm talking about them as footballers, not as people, their quality maybe has been glossed over a little bit. Like, you look at the quality of Manchester City against Liverpool yesterday, and you look at, even at their peak, their peak form, how many of these Manchester United players would get in there? I love a combined 11.
None.
The only people that could be on the precipice of making it would be peak Bruno Fernandes.
What position though? Instead of who?
Well, yeah, none. Well, okay, but that's when we get into that. But like, I'm talking about the quality of the player. He could potentially, at his peak last season, could have made it into one of those teams, and maybe peak Borussia Dortmund, Jadon Sancho. But I think they're both they're both leaps. I'm just saying maybe. But like, the reality is that Manchester City wouldn't look at Manchester United and say, if I got a free transfer, a free 10-year deal on that guy, or a free whatever 2-year deal on that guy, whatever is better, I would take that person. And I think that illustrates the massive problem that Ten Hag has, because the expectation isn't going to dim. Every new manager who's come into Manchester United has got this expectation of, like, we're back.
Well, the expectation has been blown up now by the fact that they're so bad at the moment. As it stands, they wouldn't qualify for the Conference League. They're behind on goal difference, West Ham, but they have a game in hand. So there's a danger they might qualify for it yet.
That would be an absolute nightmare. But then again, like, they have such pride in their academy that letting the kids go out and play every week in the Conference League may not be the worst thing. The Europa League, in a way, might actually be the worst situation, because they're thinking to themselves, we might actually go and win this and try and qualify for the Champions League. With the Conference League, the prize is only to qualify for the Europa League, so there would be no incentive, and you could just play the kids in that, which might be bad. And that is what Ten Hag's job, assuming he is going to be Manchester United manager, by the way, it is going to be that. I just wonder, will he have the ability to be given patience and
did we underrate the job that Solskjaer was doing with this shower?
Yes, 100%. And that's not to say that Solskjaer is a good manager or a great manager or anything like that, but it definitely felt like all of us, I definitely thought that Solskjaer was largely at fault, because I thought that Bruno Fernandes would get into the Manchester City/Liverpool team last season. I thought that maybe a fully firing version of Pogba, if there was like a manager with real credentials, could have been something that Manchester United fans could have seen. Those two players in particular, at their very best, could have brought Manchester United to a better level. But maybe actually we didn't focus enough on the lack of quality in the squad. Like, nobody needs to hear anything more about Harry Maguire or Cristiano Ronaldo, but at both ends of the pitch they've got just two really, really poor signings at this point, and you've got Ronaldo slapping a phone out of a fan's hand and smashing it on the ground, and there's an investigation into assault right now. It's just everything that could possibly go wrong in the soap opera it's like it's verging on dream team territory, you know.
Yeah, which is actually the time that you want to be coming into a situation like this where expectations are low. You get to say that player, 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 and that player are gone, and anybody you bring in should be better. Now, that isn't always the case. They bought, remember who was the Southampton midfielder they bought that we'd forgotten about?
Schneiderlin?
Yeah, like they might sign a lot of Schneiderlins again. That's possible. A lot of players who just aren't capable of stepping up and who aren't good enough. So it's not guaranteed that it's going to automatically be better next season, but you would say this is the floor for how bad it can get when the amount of money that they have available to spend on the wage bill is what it is. You should always be able to buy some quality at that level.
You would think so, but then again, like, it felt that Ralph Rangnick was in a similar enough position at the turn of the year when he came in, that, you know, this is a free pass essentially for a manager coming in.
Not a very active transfer window though, right?
Yeah, like, but
because they had decided, I think, really quickly that he wasn't going to be the guy, that this wasn't going to be an opportunity for him, and so they're not quite sure what type of player they're going to buy. Whereas with Ten Hag, you would assume Donny van de Beek gets an opportunity next season to fit into the team and the system, and that he'll have between the summer and Christmas to see if he can make it at Manchester United with a manager who understands what he's actually capable of, or else he comes in and burns him out straight away and it's like, well, I actually know what he's capable of. No thanks, I don't want that. I want better players. So, it's not. I see the point in Ten Hag, and I would have actually said that he's a winner. The further they fall between now and his official arrival, the better it is for him, because he looks better with each passing moment.
Well, like, he will look better at each passing moment once he's in the hot seat and actually manages to get some results. Like, as I say, I think that they've tried a lot of different tactics with the manager and a lot of different types of managers, and they've all failed.
Think of it as the Andy Reid / Wes Hoolahan impact. When you're not playing, you can't do yourself any damage. When you're not managing, you're not at the club, you can't make any decisions just yet. Nothing to do with you. This is not my shit show. This is Ralph Rangnick and the football hierarchy's problem, not mine.
Yeah, potentially, but my point is that he's quite worried. I would suspect, looking at what's happening over the last little while, and right. I just hoping rather than expecting that he'll be given the patience.
James McCullough, what is Owen smoking? McIlroy's in the amber after almost pulling off the greatest comeback since Lazarus, but Munster Rugby are missing after following up a poor performance with another worse one. James McCullough read Munster Rugby 13-man Exeter were disappointed they didn't win by more against Munster in the Champions Cup following their previous week's performance. This was atrocious. We'll get into the details of Munster chapter and verse with Alan Quinlan a little bit later on. But who else have you got in the red?
I also like to kind of spread the love between the sports. We've got Robert Balogun coming your way in the green in the moment, who might have a bit of a Munster segue or two in there. But Matt Doherty's in the red as well. Obviously his season is over. It's probably Ireland that are in the red really as much as anything else, and Tottenham, as you say. Sorry, what was Matt Doherty's nickname again? I've just completely drawn a blank on the
Diego Maradockerty.
Yes, that was it. Wow. Okay, that was...
Because when you can't pronounce the name properly, it helps.
It just really does, yeah. So
Diego Maradockerty doesn't quite work, does it?
No, he's gone. He's gone. His season's over for Tottenham, and it is a setback for Spurs given the way he's been playing over the last little while, but also it's going to be a big setback for Stephen Kenny. The Nations League games in June are huge, and I'm not sure. I think that when we get to June and we get to these Nations League games, those people who thought that maybe the referendum on Stephen Kenny was over, I'm not sure could it start bubbling to the fore again, because people will be like, you said you wanted to win the Nations League, or you were going to win the Nations League and now you're not doing it, sort of thing. I just think there is a tiny bit of pressure on these Nations League fixtures, and he'll want everybody available for that. Matt Doherty would be a surprise now at this point, given the severity of the injury, the reported injury, that he's going to make it.
It was literally wall-to-wall quotes about Doherty, certainly in all the Irish media, but all the English media as well. If you were looking, you were finding that people were holding him up as the exemplar of good management from Conte. He had one foot out the door and now he was back in, and they were talking about him starting next season as the first choice right wing back, and that's still possible depending on the severity of the injury. There's a debate about whether or not they're going to let it settle down, or if he's going to have surgery straight away. So if they manage that properly and he's back for the start of next season, I think that would be a good achievement from here.
There were better stories from an Irish perspective over the course of the weekend in football. Just to kind of handpick a couple of them, you should check out Colin Whelan's goal for UCD against Sligo. He's the Ireland under-21 star. Brilliant goal, but also some vintage Joey and Doe commentary in there. The Welcome to Heaven tagline has been given to Colin Whelan at this point. And then Troy Parrott over the water again, just with another goal for MK Dons. Another absolute belter for MK Dons against Wimbledon, no less, at the weekend. A sort of beautiful volley off the outside of the boot, you know, when you're on the wrong side, the Canio style, and you go with the boot closest to the goal and off the inside, kind of as a set play broke down. It was an absolutely sensational finish. It's a 7th goal of the season in League One. Obviously made a good start to life at MK Dons. Things settled down for him a little bit, and then over the last little while, after going 4 months without a goal, he's got 4 goals in his last 6 games. So he's absolutely flying at the moment. They're obviously in the upper echelons of League One. They've got a couple of games in hand. It's going to be tough for them to get automatic promotion, but he'll certainly be a playoff footballer at the end of the season at the very least.
Yeah. Okay.
We move on to the Grand then, the Amber, and I guess it's interesting, the commenter who said there a moment ago, who said that Rory McIlroy, after one of the greatest comebacks of all time, should be in the green. And part of me tends to agree with that, and to kind of like stick on the positive side of Rory and to kick things off on that front. Like, there was a lot of talk last night, that, especially from Butch Harmon, that, you know, Rory is back now. This is the sort of performance that will kind of like relaunch his career a little bit, certainly in the context of majors, and I could be very excited for the USPGA next month, and you might have him down as a potential winner. That remains to be seen. But if he does manage to get over the line, and this is a sort of rocket launcher for him, regardless of whether or not he wins the Masters, you have to say that McIlroy is back in the conversation of being the best golfer of his generation, and beyond being in the conversation of it, because it did feel over the last little while that the narrative around it was that there was a coterie of United States golfers who'd come through that were just better than McIlroy. That McIlroy burst through in the Tiger is injured and now missing phase, and he filled that void brilliantly and was definitely the most talented golfer who came through in those years. But that kind of, as I say, that tranche of Americans were just that little bit better than him, and Rory would struggle to be anywhere near as dominant as he might have looked in the early stages of his career. So he himself, and if we look at the current golfers of his generation, himself and Koepka are on 4 majors at the moment. Jordan Spieth is on 3. DJ and Morikawa are on 2, and then you got Scheffler, Rahm, Bryson and JT on 1. So does McIlroy end up being the most decorated major performer out of that collection of golfers? There's every chance he does, and I think if he does that, he'll have to go down as the best golfer of his generation, which I'm not sure if people were expecting that a couple of years ago. You're saying that he is going to win more majors? The evidence of yesterday would suggest that he is, but I'm reluctant to say that he will, because it's not that we've been in this exact place before. Like, I mean, he hasn't shot a 64 on the final day of Augusta National before. Like, he's had very, very good days in the final day of the Masters when he's been out of contention, and that is where he gets brought into closer to red territory here. This idea that, you know, when the pressure is off, Rory McIlroy delivers, especially when it comes to the Masters. And maybe that's the truth. Maybe that is the truth, but it wasn't necessarily a completely pressure-free scenario when things started ratcheting up for him yesterday. Like, I mean, he wasn't in contention, so it's not the pressure that Scheffler was feeling or anything like that, but he does walk away from yesterday now having won 3 of the 4 majors, and in the 4th major, he's come 2nd. So he's right there, and like, I feel that if McIlroy wins one Masters, the whole idea of him being, you know, a final day merchant when there's no pressure on him, that conversation will totally disappear. Yeah, exactly. But like, that's just there's no nuance in that conversation whatsoever. And there can't be, because like the whole point, he's literally at this stage only playing to try and win that Masters in terms of his legacy. It's like, you know, that very short list of career Grand Slam winners, like, he can keep winning. If he was to start winning majors again, I think that would be a massive breakthrough, and it would definitely help him win the Masters if he was to win one of the other ones. But I think that, like, we can't just pencil him in for more success in majors on the back of this. Like, it's hard to, like, it was brilliant to see him, but there was a putt on 9 where it would have been 4 birdies in a row if he got it. Well, he birdied 10, so it would have been his 3rd in a row. That would have absolutely ramped up the pressure, and he just couldn't get to that point where it was turning the screw in the way that, like, Peak Tiger. Would Peak Tiger have won from that situation yesterday? From McIlroy's starting point? Yeah. No.
You don't think that, like, when the charge was on and when there were shots being dropped?
No, there was just too much of a gap. Like that's where the kind of, like, when there's the no pressure on McIlroy situation does have. I can see why people are making that argument again this morning, because he's having a prayer, and like it did look. You know what, he might do something here, but it was totally based on the presumption or the idea that Scheffler would drop a few shots. Like, that was the whole idea that Rory was putting himself into position to put the scare on Scheffler and for him to come back a little bit. That's all he could have done yesterday. Like, there's no way he could have, like, it wasn't in his hands, and that's why the pressure was off him. So I can see why people are making that argument. I'm not sure if I personally agree with it, but that's why it's there. Like, Tiger could have maybe bested the course record. He could have gone to 63, 62 maybe. Like, is it enough in the end to beat Scotty Scheffler in the end? It's not. So.
Well, it might be, though. That's the thing we don't know. That's the bit where you don't put the pressure on, where it's not like, I need this putt. You know, like Scheffler controlled the field. Like, it was never in doubt. That was the point. Like,
the thing is, like, what Tiger does when he's rocketing up the leaderboard is that you hear the roar, and that is what puts the pressure on a leader. But McIlroy was doing that yesterday. Like, you could hear it when television coverage was covering Smith and Scheffler. You could hear a massive roar from elsewhere in the course, and he knew exactly where it was coming from, because there was only one other person in that collection of golfers chasing down the top two who would get that sort of roar. Like, I saw Ry Thompson making the point that actually there were open spaces on the ropes around Scheffler's final round yesterday, which are usually 5 or 6 deep, that there wasn't such a coronation to this whole thing as you would have had with Tiger in 2019, for example. That actually the mood was all around McIlroy. He was the story yesterday, and people wanted him to do it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have the Tiger level of presence. Absolutely not. Nobody's saying that. But he does still have that presence, and what he did yesterday, I'm sure, did factor into the mind of Scheffler a little bit. But he started playing conservative. He started making very intelligent shots, Scheffler, and that's what won him the competition.
All right.
Will we move on to something else?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to Robert Balakoon and his couple of tries for Ulster at the weekend. I'm not sure, what did you make of the first of the two legs? I think from an Irish perspective, it was. I think we're looking back indeed saying that was a pretty fun weekend, and everybody's excited for a weekend too.
Yeah, it's a weird. I guess next week we'll know exactly how well or otherwise it worked. It seems to have worked very well in most of the games. There's very few blowouts. Leicester went to Claremont and absolutely ran up a score, so you would expect Claremont won't pick their strongest team for next week, although I don't know. But other than that, like, is the Leinster game over? Because Leinster have an advantage heading into top. Maybe not. Maybe they have been prone to complacency at this stage of the European competition in the past. Connacht played really, really well. Was the yellow card a red card? I don't know. Andy Friend didn't seem to be putting any pressure on loads of other people who are maybe free to speak more openly about one of their colleagues are saying that it should have been a red card for Gibson Park. The commentary certainly seemed to think it was a red card at that stage. From an Ulster perspective, like, they nearly lost the game at the very end, and I do wonder if Toulouse had just kicked a penalty when they got the ball back down into the 22 and had brought the game back some more. Or do Toulouse just think, well, we'll have 50 men for the whole game, so we're going to kill you? What's the big deal here? I don't know.
Yeah, and like I think that maybe if these were one-legged ties, there could have been a few different score lines, but it makes you watch, and it makes you very, very interested in what's going to happen next week, because we won't know the answers to a few of those questions until next week. Pascal Jacob has been in touch to say, Red just tuned in, whoever was okayed the jerseys for Connacht Leinster, bottom of the performance rankings. Couldn't agree more with that. It was an absolutely terrible colour clash. And
the blue and the green, what's the issue? You're colourblind, are you?
It must be. You thought there was no problem with that.
I guess one of them could have worn white, i.e. Leinster, right?
Yeah, that could.
It's good that these teams, because they never play each other and they never get to see this. You know, it's like I guess what's new. It's so rare that Leinster would play Connacht in the sports grounds that they would under lights that they wouldn't have had an opportunity to spot this before.
Yeah,
we've never had a test run for it.
No, obviously when you talk about like the Toulouse situation, and maybe you mentioned the controversy around the yellow card on Friday night, on Saturday night, there seems to be, like, it seems like Toulouse, I think Dupont actually said after the game, like, it shouldn't have been a red card, which is like just an astonishing comment. Obviously there's a siege mentality aspect to it and backing up his teamate, but I think Wayne Barnes had to be escorted off the pitch in Toulouse at the weekend. Obviously, there was the added element of Balakoon allegedly being offside for his intercept try, his hat-trick. He wasn't. He was onside, and Barnes got both of those decisions totally correct. So, like, Toulouse are like in a pretty bad loser's spot after what happened at the weekend, and that'll probably just make them angry next week, and they'll probably be at their swashbuckling best. But like, I think Ulster deserve a huge amount of credit for what they did and how they managed to utilise the extra man. And Balakoon is just absolutely incredible. Like, it did feel that he was a little bit of out of sight, out of mind during the Six Nations. Obviously, it was a good Six Nations for Ireland. They won the Triple Crown. They only lost one game. Mac Hansen was brilliant. James Lowe was brilliant. Hugo Keenan was excellent. So it's very, very hard to have made a case that Robert Balakoon should have been more involved in the starting team for Ireland over the course of the Six Nations. But you look at what he did on Saturday against such a good team, and granted they were a man down, but you're like, you'd love to see a bit of that. You'd love to see that thrown in against the All Blacks in the summer and just see what happens. It's a very, very competitive position now, the back three for Ireland, which they're in a great position with at the moment. Yeah,
and all like relatively young players. Like Mac Hansen, 23. I think Balakoon's actually older than him, but you know, it's we are well stocked at the position of wing. Hansen was really good as well on Friday night, I thought. So, but Balakoon, like, that's one of those dream scenarios. They just need to back it up. We've seen these performances from Ulster before where there's an inconsistency, but they just need to back it up now, and that would be a massive, massive leap forward.
Yeah, it certainly would. The other element, obviously, from the weekend was Munster, which we'll touch on with Alan Quinlan a little bit later on, but they will be absolutely delighted with how things turned out on the scoreboard on Saturday, I suspect. Just the amount of errors, the way they just completely lost the battle of the breakdown in the first half on Saturday was pretty surprising. I'm not sure I think Munster fans will be pretty excited by the prospect of Graham Rowntree taking over as head coach after seeing his outrage at half-time on the BT Sport cameras in the dressing room. He certainly wasn't letting the Munster team off the leash for that first half performance. And it came out a little bit better in the second half. Exeter probably will rue the fact that they didn't put more on Munster, especially with a couple of opportunities they had in that first half. So they come away from that, and I think that Munster will actually be deep down one of the big winners from the weekend.
Guess the spreads, right? Very quickly.
Munster for a single game.
Yeah, for the single game.
I would say Munster -3.
I've got -5. Munster -5.
Ulster plus 10.
Ulster +1.
+1, yeah. +10 was a bit harsh. They're at home.
What? But it's Toulouse.
Yeah, it is Toulouse. They're sensational, but like this.
An angry Toulouse.
Yeah. I'm not like maybe somewhere in the middle there, and then Leinster minus. Let's go -10 on Leinster.
-24.
Oh wow! Okay, wow. That is on Andy Friend's dressing room wall this morning.
It should be. We ain't getting no respect. You're going to put some respect on our name.
Yeah, that's
take my rugby team's name out of your mouth.
Obviously, a few years ago, it was Ulster who came to the Aviva and almost beat Leinster in one of those one-off games in the Champions Cup. So it can be done. They can get again. Leinster did win that night, so it didn't matter. But they can get rattled at home in Europe. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility. And Connacht will probably have a bit of confidence from what happened on Friday night as well.
Rory's the full forward in junior club football who scores 3 class points when his team are being hammered 5-16 to 1-5 and there's 7 minutes left, says Brian Dillon. This is a variation on a theme that a lot of people were tweeting us last night. I don't think it's the same. I think that like Rory McIlroy was the best golfer in the world for a long period of time. He set the standard. That's why, as you were saying, there was that move behind him and people wanted to see him come back. So it's like it'd be like the Dubs. You know, he was at Dublin's level of dominance. Maybe not Dublin's level of dominance. He was more like that Tipperary team. Clearly the best team in the country for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, and maybe
bookended by greatness, right?
Could I just? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I'm just saying that, that bit where this is all. That's not all he's done. He was the best golfer in the world. He has beaten the big fields. He has trounced them in the majors. And he nearly did it at one time, except that he found a part of the course that nobody knew existed, and that caused him to have a meltdown. Like, he finished 15th.
It does feel that criticism of McIlroy might have been, conjured up in people's minds at the turn last night, and then that comment could have been sent in at that point, and everybody had kind of like formed their opinion on McIlroy in that front nine, being like, okay, look at him doing this again when the pressure's not on him. But then in that back nine, he kept it up, and like he puts up a historic figure on a final day at Augusta. So like that changes it a little bit. I think it's not just about him delivering when there was little pressure on him yesterday. It was the fact that he put up a crazy score at Augusta National, which obviously has given him one of his most painful memories in the past. But look, John Duggan tipped him last week. 6 out of the last 10, so what's that? 7 out of the last 11 times he's finished in the top 10 at Augusta. It's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
We finally move on this morning to the last person in our performance rankings, and that is Vicky Wall of Meath. Not player of the match yesterday for Meath as they won their first ever Division 1 National League title, but I think she was head and shoulders the best player on the park yesterday. It was Niamh McLaughlin of Donegal, by the way, who scored a penalty, absolute scorcher of a penalty. She got the player of the match yesterday, but Wall's influence was just incredible throughout the match. She's not the same player at all, but it feels like her fingerprints on the team are quite akin to Ciarán Kilkenny's fingerprints on the great Dublin team, given that, you know, you wouldn't necessarily see him tearing it up on the scoreboard, but when you watch the game, you're like, okay, that person is absolutely integral to how this team plays. And Wall is that person for me. Like, I would not be surprised whatsoever if Eamon Murray has completely ripped up the old cliche of let the ball do the work and actually just said to his team, let Vicky Wall do the work, because she is that good. It actually is just as effective giving her the ball and letting her tear through the defence as it is kicking the ball into an attacker in a one-on-one position. And what it does is that they've got some brilliant other attackers around her, especially in those two forward lines. And you've got like Niamh O'Sullivan, who scored an incredible goal early in the second half. Anybody who didn't see it, she was off balance, kind of reverse, kicked it into the opposite corner. She was kind of moving away to the left, and then, as I say, on the reverse, kind of put it into the right corner. And then Kelsey Nesbitt scored 1-1 as well. Emma Duggan with a couple of points. And when you got those forwards around you, and you're tearing through the defence, and the defence is like, oh God, what do we do now? You've got those players with extra yards of space, and without her, I don't think Meath would have won the game yesterday. That's not exactly a hot take, because Donegal were really good. They only lost by 2 points, and they're a proper side as well. It's going to be a really, really exciting championship after looking at it yesterday. And there was a picture put up afterwards of Wall and Eamon Murray celebrating together, and she quote tweeted it saying, still friends. Of course, Eamon Murray slagged off the sport that she's going to go play this year.
Maybe.
But Murray did say that she's not going to go at any point this season. If she's going to go, she'll have to wait till after the All-Ireland Championship is complete. And it looks like they might go all the way again this year.
Yeah, well, certainly, and it's going to be a nice little bit of spice to the game against the Dubs later on in the championship. This is the Gillette Labs performance rankings. If you want to get involved, we'd love to hear from you. The best place to do that is on the Instagram feed. There's a box there. You can tell us who you think should be in the red, the amber or the green. A lot of you giving out about the fact we haven't talked about the Liverpool-Manchester City game just yet. We're going to do a full 25 minutes on it now with Mark Lawrenson, so don't worry. We understand that it was an excellent game of high quality, and it would certainly have been in the green, and we could easily put both teams in the amber because we're not quite sure what the result means for the title race, but we are going to give that its full due deference in just a couple of minutes time. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or you can of course leave a comment on the YouTube stream. But that is this week's Gillette Labs performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
Right, we have some Brian Kerr goodness coming your way. If you want to get in touch, if you want to hear, Mark Lawrenson's on the other side of this. Here's Brian Kerr, who was at the Etihad for off the ball yesterday.
OTB
AM. Now, is he kind of thinking, well, there's only a point in the title race, but you would fancy City to get it done and maybe start focusing on getting the other 3 trophies? Or
I think you'd be delighted, Stephen, to win any of those other 3 trophies, but particularly the Champions League or the Premier League. But they're not in control of the Premier League anymore.
And the thing is, they won it a couple of seasons ago, but without their supporters. And I think that there's a sense of unfinished business there, isn't there?
Possibly. I don't know whether they feel that way about it. But last season was a very difficult season for them, where they didn't defend it well at all. Ended up 17 points behind Manchester City. No crowds most of the season as well there. But I would think if they were offered either the Champions League or the Premier League now, they'd take either. It's going to take them. They're not, as I said, they're not in control of the Premier League position. They could win all 7 games; it wouldn't be enough. But I don't think they're going to get 21 points. I think they will be doing well to get somewhere around 17 points from those fixtures. So that would allow City drop 4 points from the games they have left. That'd be that's my gut feeling at this stage. I could be wrong. I think the United match will have a big influence. Everton, it's another one. The Spurs game will be a difficult match because I think Spurs will be still in contention for the Champions League spot by the time they play them. So it's like, from Liverpool's point of view, 1 trophy up, still in contention for 3. Will be very disappointed not to end up with at least one of those 3. But that could be the case. Champions League, they should win. The Benfica one, I take it, they're going to beat Benfica.
Even though, as we mentioned towards the end of the game, the players looking tired, I think Liverpool will be okay?
I think Liverpool could make 4 or 5 changes to the team against Benfica and still hold on to a 2-goal lead that they have going into the home game.
Are the rumours true that this is out of the Flooring Porter betting syndicate that we were...
They're trying to hide the money here, Will. That's what they're trying to do now.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Jealous of all the inside analysis and crack on the football pod? Well, we've got you covered with the Hurling Pod. Join myself, Will O'Callaghan, along with James Skehill and Paul Murphy for the best insight this hurling season.
Waterford will go to this going, as this is a great chance for silverware, we're here to win it. I think we'll see a savage Waterford team coming out, and I don't have the same questions about Waterford as I would with Cork in terms of will they turn up.
Subscribe to the Hurling Pod feed on the OTB SPORTS app now.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance PLC.
OTB AM. With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 11 minutes past 8 this morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. I'm delighted to say Mark Lawrenson is with us. Mark, good morning to you. You were at the Etihad yesterday. What was your performance assessment of the two teams and the quality of what we were seeing?
Outstanding. There's no argument they're the best two teams in the world in terms of club football. If like me, you remember watching Real Madrid, that is, of course, and Barcelona in El Clasico for all those years and thinking, wow, how eye-watering was that, watching those two teams go at each other. They're very much there now, these two teams. So I thought City were a little bit unfortunate. They could have almost put it to bed in the first half. They had lots of chances and they cut Liverpool open more than I've seen any other team do that this season. And I think the reason for that was the fact that Liverpool have just cruised through all the games, and rightly so, because they're that much better than all the other teams in the league apart from City. And City yesterday, the way they started, Liverpool were hanging on in the end. But of course, like any good side, came in half-time, reorganised a little bit, and the best thing that happened to them was they scored with virtually the first attack of the second half. So it was just an outstanding game, in all honesty. The
psychology is always weird in situations like this where Man City are playing brilliantly and then they score and then they stop playing for a little while and allow Liverpool back into the game, and Liverpool are so good that they can take advantage of that. What is it about City that, like, maybe we expect too much, that actually when they're so clearly dominant for a portion of the game, we think that they should be able to do that for longer? But I guess that's the whole point when you are playing against another world-class team, is that they're also going to have an opportunity to take control.
Well, we expect too much from both, don't we? Because they've got such outstanding players. And, if you start at 100% and then suddenly drop down to 95%, it means you're not as good. And the timing of Liverpool's second goal obviously was in the terms of the game, was massive for them. I think if they'd gone another 10 or 15 minutes without scoring, then Klopp would have had to gamble a little bit. So the fact that he scored so early, it was like, okay, we've got a point now. Let's just take it easy a little bit. Not as in stop running or anything or working or anything like that, but just let's not go hell for leather and concede another one. So it's good. And I was listening to the radio on the way home and one or two people ringing in saying, this, that, and the other about the game. But honestly, I don't know if you've ever been to a game where you've sat almost on the touchline and you suddenly realise how quick these games are. They're absolutely amazing. And then, so the ball comes to you and you've not even got half a second to think. It's a millisecond because you're under pressure and you've got to control it and pass it and move and all those kind of things. And honestly, the standard of yesterday's match was just, I thought, absolutely fantastic.
the spectacle is helped as well by the fact that both managers, and in particular Jurgen Klopp, are just beautifully stubborn and set in the philosophy that they want to play. Like so many teams, if they were challenging Manchester City, might have sat back yesterday, played a deep defensive line, and I guess that's why Manchester City had so much joy in that first half, is that Klopp stuck to his ways, but sticking to those ways ensured that they did get that equaliser in the second half.
Yeah, they were hanging on first half. I was right by him, and I was kind of watching him as much as the game as well. And I think it was almost a case he's thinking, you know, at the very least we don't go down to 2-0 at the very, very least, because then I think you are chasing the game and the game changes completely. But he kept his philosophy, and in fairness to Liverpool, you know, they hung on in those moments. And if you look at all their recent games, it's been relatively easy, and I say relatively easy in terms of most winning those games. And yesterday was just like it was like a whirlwind for the first 45 minutes playing against them, and you know they looked ordinary defensively, which obviously they very rarely do. They had lots of chances. I mean, Sterling's chance so early on as well. I mean, that could have. Well, you know, if that goes 1-0 then straight away early, then you are climbing the mountain. But look, Liverpool stuck at it, but it was just a game to kind of, once you kind of took it all in, and, you know, I was thinking on the drive home, it's just like, what a fabulous advert for the Premier League. And as I said before, El Clasico, it was up there with El Clasicos for me.
The high line that Liverpool have been playing all season is one of the reasons that they've been so successful at winning the ball back quickly and smashing teams. And so we know that it's very important. We've definitely spoken on the show before about when you get to this level where the opposition have a De Bruyne who's playing through balls, that it's on a knife edge, and the knife edge failed a little bit, you would say, perhaps for second goal or the first goal, and then just bailed them out by the width of like a deltoid that kept it at 2-2 yesterday. So it makes you feel alive as a Liverpool fan, I guess.
Yeah, listen, look, that's the way they play, and you know they gamble a little bit with the high line, excuse me, and against somebody with the vision and range of passing of De Bruyne, that's always going to be a problem because he sees things other people don't see. But that's the way that it is. I mean, if you look at the two fullbacks for Liverpool in the first half, Trent and Robertson, you know, they had a bit of a torrid time at times, but City have got world-class players, and that's what happens. I think just the fact that what will please Klopp is that you stay in the game. By hook or by crook, you stay in the game. And if the goalkeeper has to make outstanding saves, he makes outstanding saves, and that's what you're paying for. So, yeah, I mean, you know, one of the best things for me the whole game and was when Edison, you thought he'd miscontrolled it, and Jota's closing in on him, you're thinking, and he just it was like he had a cigar on, didn't it? He went, yeah, that's the problem, just stop it going over the line and I'll pass it to Cancelo, and what's your great problem? But, I mean, that was, I just started laughing. I just thought, wow, I mean, how good is this?
Do you think Ederson gets a little bit nervous in those moments, or do you think he genuinely is a cigar out guy?
100%. His heart and his backside will be like, wow. But he made it look really, really cool. But and once he did it, he must have thought, got away with one a little bit. But look, that's the way that both teams play. They both pass it out from the back, and occasionally you're going to make mistakes. And in fairness to City in the first half, they caught Liverpool very much in a way that Liverpool would have caught lots of other teams in terms of nicking the ball off them. But as I say, in the end, the 2-2, and City will feel they've Guardiola said they've missed the beat a little bit, haven't they? They've let Liverpool stay in the race, but we shall see.
Can I ask you about Thiago's performance yesterday, Mark? Because obviously that ball that he plays out to the wide for the first Liverpool goal is absolutely outstanding, and he's been playing those sort of passes over the last few weeks in particular. He's been in excellent form. On the flip side, he could have been sent off if there was a different referee. Is that a concern for you at all about his game?
No, well, not really, because normally he's got that much time and space in which to play. No, I mean, Fabinho as well. The game passed Thiago by a little bit, but that was just the sheer pace of the whole thing. And it passed, I mean, even Virgil van Dijk in the first half looked a little bit all over the place, which is almost unheard of. And so, no, I think it's just the fact that, you know, both teams, the quality of both teams is just absolutely outstanding. And there's no doubt that, they've dragged loads of teams in the Premier League to be much, much better. And they never really got any kind of praise for that. And I'm sure, if you're looking at the Spanish football week in, week out, and the quality, and then you're also watching the Premier League, it's complete role reversal, where we would just kind of salivate at the way that the top teams in La Liga were. Now it's completely the opposite, and all their supporters and everybody looking at our teams and thinking, crikey, these are head and shoulders above anybody at the moment.
Is there any possibility the Cup game has any impact on the rest of the league season? That if one team was to win, so it's totally irrelevant and separate?
Yeah, totally irrelevant. It's a Cup game. It's, someone's got to win it. No, it doesn't. Obviously you'd be disappointed because from Liverpool's point of view, because you want to try and win all 4. And if you win 2, you're delighted. If you win 3, you're ecstatic. And if you win 4, well, you're just record breakers. But no, it's a cup match, and what you can do, you can just completely park it if you get beat. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this thing goes to penalties, a bit like the Carabao Cup, of course, and then anybody can win it anyway. But no, it doesn't seriously impact. I mean, been in the position a few times, and if you win, it's great. But if you lose, you almost say to yourself, well, it's a cup match. And I think if Liverpool would rather win the league than the Champions League, and vice versa for City. Whether that happens, obviously, we don't know yet.
Pep Guardiola was in really good form in his post-match interview on TV yesterday. He's not always in good form. He was talking about the fact that himself and Klopp should have dinner sometime. He was excited to watch the Masters last night. It says to me that Pep was absolutely delighted with the result yesterday. Sure, they could have won the game, but I think he kind of sees now that they've got a bit of a hold on this title race. Yeah, listen,
everyone talks about Pep and Klopp. The families have dined together on a couple of occasions, so it's not. There is rivalry, obviously, but underneath it, both of them, they absolutely totally respect their opposition. So people have made a great thing about it with Pep and Klopp. But underneath all that, as I say, there's massive respect. I mean, what a day for sport yesterday. I don't do Formula One. I don't really get it. But obviously, the football was sensational, and Rory was like unbelievable as well. And I mean, I can't remember what time I got to bed. It's obviously after when Sheffield had won yesterday, but you just think, wow, well, that was like the top class sport you'll ever see.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad weekend, in fairness. There was plenty of other things. And one last question for you. From a Liverpool fan, you might be able to guess. Mark Johnson, do you think Liverpool deserve more credit for coming back twice at City? We went to win, not draw. We don't have billions to buy the league like City and Chelsea. Liverpool are a team with heart, he says. Do they deserve more credit for keeping going? Or is it actually a 50-50 after a result like that?
I think they got lots of credit, because they came back. And I mean, the money thing will always raise its ugly head, won't it? And the next thing is, well, we're not sponsored by a country or backed by a country, all that kind of stuff. But look, it is what it is. City are very, very fortunate in terms of what their owners can do for them. Liverpool on a completely different trajectory, but what Liverpool have done is better than any other football team, I think. Is their recruitment has been absolutely unbelievable, that old recruitment again. So yeah, and if you look at Liverpool and look at the number of players they bought between 30 and 40 million and turned them into almost upwards of £100 million players, it's amazing. And I know City fans will go, hold on, you signed Alisson and you signed Van Dijk. Absolutely, totally did. But, what unbelievable signings they were. But generally, Liverpool's look at it is they don't buy a complete player. They buy a very, very good player for smaller amounts in terms of fees, but they make that very, very good player into a world-class player, and they've done that with loads and loads of players.
Let's move on and talk about Manchester United. We felt that there was a chance that Everton were going to get sucked back down by virtue of the performance that they had, where the game was there for them to win against Burnley and they couldn't do it. And then, of all the teams you want to ride into town, it's the rudderless Manchester United who come to Goodison and barely tried a leg. It was like, I guess we didn't think it could get much worse for Manchester United, but we were wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that will be their worst performance of the season, bar none. It just tells you the problems. And, we've spoken about this before, and if you have an interim manager, regardless of whoever it is, he's an interim manager, and players in the dressing rooms who don't particularly like him because probably he doesn't pick them on a regular basis, they're not bothered. They're like, well, he's gone in May, so let's wait for the next fella. And I think therein lies the problem is that it's not so much the ability of these players, it's just the dressing room. It's almost like I don't know if there are factions in there, but I would be very, very surprised if there isn't, because it doesn't make any sense. Because if you take some of these guys individually, they're the real top players, as we know. But in terms of collectively, they play like they've just met in the park, these fellas, and it's just I just don't get it. And you kind of like, where's the leadership coming from? It doesn't seem to think it's not coming from the manager, because he's obviously a really, really nice guy, but he's a really nice guy who knows that come May he's either shifted upstairs or paid off or whatever, and it's somebody else's problem. And it's whoever's coming into this football club, it's going to be a massive, massive job, and good luck to them. But they're seriously going to have to change the way they think, not so much change the way they play, but change the way they think. And if you just look yesterday, look at forget about the ability of City and Liverpool. Look how hard they work. Look how hard they win. They run and fight to get the ball back. Just everything about it, and everything is done literally at 100 miles an hour. And if you don't do it, you don't get anywhere near those teams, and you get taken off. And there's such a long way off Manchester United. I'd like them to do that, because I think it's great for the Premier League. But if it's whoever's the new guy, whoever he is who's coming in, he's got one hell of a job, by the way.
Like Ralph Rangnick, it's interesting you say there that he could be gone in the summer, he could go upstairs in the summer. We'll see what actually happens. But the point you just made there about these players not playing like a team at the moment, like surely that damages Rangnick's reputation significantly, despite the fact that he is just papering over the cracks. He is just a stopgap in that dugout. The fact that he hasn't got this team playing as a team is surely a black mark against him, and regardless of what capacity he exists within the club after this.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's obviously a nice guy. You sense he's a nice guy, and you listen to him that he's a nice guy. But he's also, because he knows he's not staying, he might go upstairs, so what does that mean? But he's not and can't really rock the boat, because he knows he's not staying. And it's almost like, oh, you've done me a favour, you've given me a job for 6 months, and whether I stay in whatever guise, we don't know. But I think that's one of the problems, that he obviously doesn't go into the dressing room and fire into them. And I know, they say, oh, you can't shout at players anymore, and you can't do this, and you can't. Well, you can if you know, as a manager, temporary or full-time, whatever you want to call it, you can if you know that they're actually, some of them aren't pulling the weight, and majority of them aren't pulling the weight. So, and they're not playing for each other. I think they're looking after themselves as well, which of course is not a good position to be in. And it's what do they call it? Root and branch, I think, as far as they're concerned with the football club. So look, whoever comes in, good luck, but he's going to have to start firing a few bullets as soon as he gets in there. Otherwise, they're just going to be the same Manchester United. And I think the league needs a really, really good Manchester United team as well. Why not have another one and chuck Arsenal and Tottenham as well into the mix and make it a little bit more competitive? Because at the moment, the top two are a million miles away from anybody.
We've spoken before as well, just in the last week or two, about the transformative impact that Jurgen Klopp had on Liverpool. It was a perfect timing where the club decided they were going to put money in. There was the rump of a good team there, but he came in, put shape on them, and all of the signings were done with his style of play in mind. Is something similar happening at Spurs, where they have a genuinely world-class manager? The stadium is finished. Crowds can come back. They have some very, very excellent players, some world-class players in that team. Yeah. And they've signed 2 players already who are straight in the team and making an impact, which suggests that things for whatever reason, might be a complete fluke, have a line now where they know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. And while he said one or two strange things, Conte, over the course of being there, he's getting it right. And that's all you actually want. And, you know, the other thing about the couple of players that he signs, he knows them really, really well, and they know him. And, you know, that makes a massive difference. Once you kind of ally that with your Sons and your Kanes and those kind of people, all of a sudden they look completely different. I still wouldn't be convinced defensively about Tottenham, but they are definitely getting there. And you know, Arsenal have just done what Arsenal do, which is have a really, really good run, and we're going to say, oh, they're going to walk fourth, they're going to make it easily, and all those kind of things. And then they lose games. You know, Palace away didn't turn up. Brighton at home at the weekend. I wouldn't say they didn't turn up, but they didn't really start with any fire. And in the end, obviously, they end up getting done. But that's a little bit what Arsenal do, I think, since, coming towards the end of the reign of Wenger, that's the way that they were. And they've not really changed. They're great when they play well. They're really easy on the eye. But on occasions, when they really need to fight and make it difficult for the opposition, they don't really seem to have got it. And Tottenham can sometimes be like that also.
There's often quite a lot of talk, Mark, about like how to manage a modern football team, and there seems to be this kind of prevailing sense that, you know, footballers need to be mollycoddled and looked after, and, you know, when you're speaking publicly about them, you can't throw them under the bus. Whereas what you're seeing right now, like, I mean, Antonio Conte was brutal in his public pronouncements about this Tottenham team right after coming in. He was unbelievably honest about the situation that he found at the club, the effort of the players, the hierarchy, and look at the turn of results. And even in a smaller case of that, Thomas Tuchel eviscerated his players last week after the Real Madrid performance, and then they go out and smash Southampton at the weekend. Like, there's a lot to be said for tough love, I think, at the moment with regards to man management. There's two examples there that are working.
But also, you know, what I think the key is to get the real top players on your side. That's the key. And if you listen to both managers, they speak about their best players all the time. So the best players can carry all the rest of them on, and I think that's the difference. And listen, you know, I think obviously both Tuchel and Conte are very, very good man managers, but they're also completely in charge of the whole of the football side. And I think he's been very clever, Conte. He said one or two things and you kind of think, why on earth would you say that? But then actually when you look at it and results start to come, you kind of think, okay, we get it. But I mean, you know, the way he's been with Harry Kane has been very, very clever, as in, you know, just every time he talks about him, he can't talk enough about him. This fella's brilliant. He's such a fantastic person, and, you know, such a fantastic player, and all those kind of things. And he leads the team. And the thing is, you know, the ones who go with him will stay with him, and the ones who are like iffy in terms of performances, etc., Conte will get rid of them eventually.
A good chance they're in the Champions League next year. Everybody will want to come and play for him. He's such a dynamic character. Then, you know, there's very good reasons for them to be very hopeful about it. A question on YouTube, last one.
There is. Go on. I was just going to say there isn't, but you have to factor Daniel Levy into that because in terms of buying players, good luck. Because
is Antonio Conte the one person in the world who might actually be able to just look him in the eye and say, this is it, buddy. Everything is here. Literally everything is here for you to be successful. I could turn you into the new Liverpool if you want it. And that's the challenge.
The only problem is, the best description of Daniel Levy I've ever heard is he wouldn't give you a crumb off his plate. So he's going to have to deal with it. But I think the thing with Conte is, I think he only signed for 18 months. So I think the thing with Conte is that Daniel Levy knows that if he doesn't get what he wants within reason, he will walk away. So he's got to then balance that in terms of, you know, players in and players out and all those kind of things.
The last question was from somebody on YouTube saying, Ronaldo is one of the worst big club signings ever. Do you agree? And
no. No, I don't, because, you know what you're going to get with Ronaldo. And, you know, I don't know how many goals has he scored. He's scored lots of goals, hasn't he, for Manchester United? I just think a little bit with Ronaldo is I still think he's better coming from the left, you know, of a front three, because that's how he made his name, and that's how he scored all those unbelievable goals. But he plays through the middle, and he doesn't press, he doesn't charge people down or anything like that. And you might say that, you know, in terms of effort, but if you get him the ball in the penalty area and he's got half a chance, more often than not, he's going to score. But man, that's another thing why Manchester United are just a mess, and that's also, I think, with Ranić, nice fella that he is, he doesn't want to upset anybody. And, you know, I mean, De Gea obviously was quite happy to upset people after Saturday at Everton. And I know Ranić says, well, yeah, you know, I kind of agree with him. He didn't kind of take that on and actually go, oh, by the way, not just that, but X, Y, Z. But he knows he's going in May, so why is he going to upset anybody? He simply isn't.
He wasn't naming names for sure. Mark, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
It's Mark Lawrenson giving us some thoughts on a spectacular weekend of football and golf, it turns out. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Owen was out with the Republic of Ireland ahead of their game against Sweden, which you can hear live on OTB Sports Radio tomorrow. Here is his interview with Jamie Finn.
Have you spoken about what comes down the line? I presume, obviously, and the obvious thing is that you are just focusing on Sweden right now, but I guess there's an incentive to what might come down the line if results after Sweden go your way and you get the job done, you keep winning outside of the Sweden matches, that there is this unbelievable historic moment for Irish sport actually on the horizon. I presume that's a real motivating factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think me personally, I think playing for my country and getting to a World Cup would be absolutely amazing, and I think all the girls are on that same page, coaching staff. But as you said, I think we're just going to take it one game as they come. I think that's how you have to approach this. You can get overwhelmed with games and stuff like that, but it's just focusing on Sweden and then we'll go from there.
All right, that's Jamie Finn. You can see loads of those interviews that Owen has done with the team out at their Castleknock base across our social channels. The best place is on YouTube, youtube.com/offtheball. If you hit subscribe, you'll get access to all of our videos there and all of our live feeds as well. Aisling O'Reilly is in Gothenburg for us. Aisling, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, lads. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. We're looking forward to this now. It's the tension keeps ratcheting up, but that's a good thing because the tension ratchets up because we have a better opportunity to progress. And, you know, this team has come on in leaps and bounds. So you've been travelling over there. What was the trip like?
Yeah, it was good, yeah. So I left yesterday from Dublin and I had to get a connecting flight to Frankfurt in Germany. So I just about made my flight from Germany to Gothenburg. There was a bit of a delay leaving Dublin, so I sprinted.
There's not trouble at Dublin Airport, and that never happens.
Do you know what? It actually wasn't too bad getting through Dublin Airport. It was probably about maybe an hour in total because I was absolutely dreading that, seeing all the videos through the week. But about an hour getting through, but then it was delayed, the actual flight, for about half an hour. And I knew that I only had an hour to get on the next flight once I landed. So when I landed, they were actually boarding for the next one. And I was just looking down at the gate number and I was hoping, right, hopefully it's close by. And I was at gate Z where we landed and I had to get to A40. So I was like, oh my God. So the far side of the airport. So I literally sprinted the whole way and just about got there as they were boarding the next flight. So yeah, just about got here.
Pretty successful outcome, I think, to be honest. I mean, no hanging around that airport. Nobody wants to be doing that. That's good time efficiency.
Oh, well, yeah, that I was hoping to be able to grab a bit of food or something like that, but no, it was sprinting through. So I'm missing my training tonight, so I made up for it, I think. There's
proper excitement around this team, and the excitement had been building pre-COVID. We were getting really good crowds in Tala for those matches, but obviously, there's been disappointment along the way too. We hope that the team has turned the corner. It feels like there's proper excitement around the team and that's merited.
Absolutely. There's such an excitement, bidding to reach a first ever major tournament, a real buzz about the team, which is amazing to see and rightly so. The talent is exceptional and you just feel that things as a whole for Irish football are in a good place at the minute. We look at Sweden and they're second in the world, so they're not going to be going in there underestimating them by any means, but I think it's important for them now to focus on the game, just go out and do whatever they can do to get the best result they can. But definitely there's a real sense of confidence and positivity about this Ireland team.
Which I think was boosted on Friday night because Finland and Slovakia drew 1-1.
Yeah, this was major because for people that don't know, Ireland are in direct competition with Finland for that second place in Group A, that playoff spot. So coming up against Sweden, they're sitting at 18 points clear at top of the table. They're within touching distance really of automatic qualification. So with Finland dropping points, that means that Ireland's chances of qualification is really within their grasp now. So it is really exciting. We looked at the results so far. Ireland, they had a great win over Finland. It was 2-1. That was in Helsinki in last October. But then a 1-1 draw with Slovakia in Tala Stadium. That was a favourable result for Finland as they were playing catch-up at that time. So I suppose if Finland did get the 3 points there on Friday, then they really probably would have intensified the pressure on Ireland. But thankfully, yeah, they got a 16th minute equaliser, which stopped Finland in their track. So it means now that the draw moves Finland level with Ireland on 7 points. And we have the game in hand now against Sweden tomorrow here in Gothenburg. So yeah, in a good situation, and that was definitely a favourable result for Ireland.
You look at the goal difference as well, which could prove pivotal, especially tomorrow night, because Finland are playing Georgia. Obviously, we saw what Ireland did to Georgia when they played them. They've got a 9-goal cushion, as I say, and Ireland obviously playing Sweden. So you don't want to say that Ireland will be in damage limitation mode if Sweden go 1-0 up, but it has to be somewhere in their mind because it's the cushion that they'll have over Finland when they have the same amount of games played.
Yeah, well, this is it. So it's understanding what to do going out against Sweden. It'll be interesting to see, do they sort of go out and play for the draw, or do they go with that attacking football style that they're really good at? They're well able to score goals, and we've seen that. As you said, Owen, the score difference could come down to it. So it'll be interesting to see how they plan out. But I do think that walking away from Sweden here with a point, getting a draw would be a massive result, and it'll put them in a good situation. So yeah, I think that's probably how they'll go out. Look, they'll probably tell you they'll go out for the win, of course. But I think if we walked away with a draw, it would be absolutely massive.
It feels like we've kind of underestimated Slovakia in this group a little bit. There was genuine disappointment around the fact that we were only able to draw 1-1 with them at home. But our last game in the qualifying series is actually away to Slovakia, and Finland play Sweden that same night. So this is going right to the wire. This is going to the last game. And as you say, anything from this game tomorrow would be pretty good. The Swedes are pretty confident, though, didn't they? There's a minor controversy about their jersey release.
Yeah, I seen all this on the way over yesterday. So they've released a new kit basically that details how to stand a chance against us. So what it is exactly is how to beat them. So they have statistics, facts about the team, their players, and they have it all leading to a website of how to stop one of the best teams in the game, basically. And it's compiled all with their leading match analyst, Anders Eriksson. And he just says that it's basically they want to up the stakes this summer, keep things ultra transparent by telling our competitors how to play, how to win, how to maybe stand a chance. And it's just broken down their stats and tactics and individual player data. It's mad. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. What do you think the reason is really behind it?
Well, Jer's shaking his head in studio here. He's not a fan of this.
Whatever you say nothing. That's the culture that we're raised on, right?
I think it's a pretty big move. I like it. I'm not going to lie. They went out and they hammered Georgia 15-0 the day after they released it. So maybe they saw the Georgia fixture was coming up and they were like, this would be a safe enough time to release it.
Have you ever seen this done before?
I don't remember anybody bragging about how they're going to beat you. Well, I mean, Muhammad Ali, maybe. That's the type of level that we're talking at here, right?
Yeah. I did. Like I say, it's interesting that you said that there was like the data scientist was involved in it, because I'd just seen a very quick picture of it, and it was like how to beat us, like more aggression and things like that. Like of course, I mean, you need to be aggressive to beat Sweden. Probably more goals as well is probably something it says in the jersey.
That would help for sure. What's Gothenburg like? They used to have a good football team, and it kind of slipped off people's football radar.
Well, I haven't seen a hell of a lot of it now. I ran out to get coffee now this morning because it was pitch black when I arrived last night. But yeah, so far it looks really nice, super clean, like really, really clean is the first thing that struck me. But yeah, really excited. Now today I'm going to get out to the press conferences with Sweden are at 11 a.m. and get to go to their training session. And then the Ireland one is at 5 p.m. today. They're going to be going out to their training session there as well. So hopefully I'll get to see a good bit of it over the next 2 days.
Well, listen, enjoy. Thanks a million. And we'll obviously be checking in with you between now and kick-off tomorrow. That's Aisling O'Reilly in Gothenburg for the Republic of Ireland's trip there against Sweden. World Cup qualifier tomorrow. The game is live on OTB Sports Radio tomorrow evening. Coverage starts at 5. It's 8:44. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And John Duggan is here with us. John, good morning to you.
Jaron Owen, how are we doing?
We haven't talked about the Grand National yet. It's one of those great British underdog stories where a multi-millionaire amateur talks about his success where they bought the horse to win the race. It's such a... He's got 1 million patients, it says in the papers today. He's got a series of dental clinics, 4,000 employees. I mean, he's a friend of the Cambridges. I don't even know who they are. Which ones are they? It's hard to tell anymore.
They're the William and Kate.
Right. Well, it's like, isn't this a hard... I didn't know any of that stuff. I thought when I was watching, I was like, an amateur, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I wonder, is he like the amateur boxers? Is he like the racing equivalent of Callie Harrington and Paddy Barnes?
Struggling for funding.
No, he ain't. There's no carding system that he's like trying to make sure that...
I feel a little bit uncomfortable here, guys.
He's got his protein shakes. Like, good man, the Wally Cohens, they actually have proper double-barreled where in a meaningful way.
Money can't make a horse run fast.
Turns out, buying the best horse can. It's like,
that is one way around.
We wanted to buy a horse to win the National, so we bought a horse to win the National. Plucky underdog. And the way the coverage was like, this is incredible. This is amazing. It's like, it's not really. It really isn't.
Did they look happy? Did you get a sense
they
that
were
money
totally happy. They were totally happy. He was fined for... Anyway, look,
I don't know what to say to that, lads. I think it's incredible.
We're being cynical.
Yeah, I think they've gone through some tough times, the Whaley Cohens, and I would just say that it's a fairy tale for them. I think it's a brilliant story, personally. And
I would have preferred if the second horse home had won. Ted Walsh was the trainer of the second horse.
Jamie McManus has had his Grand National winners, and look, they have the resources behind them, but to identify, look, here's a young trainer in Ireland that hasn't really done amazingly in the game. He's only very young.
This part of the story I can totally get behind.
And
which Mullins is this?
He's Willie's nephew, son of George. So George does the transport mainly for Willie and for all the Mullinses. He does all the horse boxes, and his son is Emmett. And Emmett rode for Willie, then trained a kind of a big winner of a handicap last year called the Shunter at Cheltenham. But to come out in his early 30s and train the Grand National winner, this horse was a novice and a 7-year-old. The race has changed in recent years, but for a 7-year-old to win the Grand National is rare. It hasn't happened in 82 years. And it's funny because we had a technical issue on Saturday, and it ended up that myself and Will O'Callaghan had to describe the last two fences. So luckily we knew the colours, having done the metric stuff with Whoop during the week, which was kind of funny. So Noble Yates was going, that's Sam Willie Cohen, what's happening here? 50-1 shot. But for Emma Mullins, Gordon Elliott landed 15 years ago when he won the Grand National after very few winners, and Emma Mullins could be similarly talented. The horses paraded in Carlow last night. But it's funny with the English underdog story, 21 of the 40 runners were Irish, and another Irish train winner and another Irish 1, 2, 3 in the Grand National.
Right. Yeah, it was really a phenomenal race in the end, and I'm only half joking about the plucky underdog multi-millionaire who has managed to win the race. There is breaking news this morning. It's not so much breaking news as a confirmation really from the Limerick leader about what we thought was going to happen at Munster.
Yeah, the province have to officially confirm it themselves, but the Limerick leader feel that Graham Roundtree's got the job. He was the forwards coach. He's probably going to become the head coach now. We know that Van Gran, as professional as I'm sure he's doing his job, is a lame duck, and a bit of certainty is what Munster have needed because it was chaos on Saturday against Exeter in that 5-point reversal, which should, though, give them an ample opportunity to go and win the second leg now on Saturday. So Graham Roundtree, but as Keith Wood was saying to you guys in the show last week, it's about more than this. It's about the whole fabric of what Munster is and what Munster can do to become strong again.
It definitely makes the dynamic interesting for the rest of the season, doesn't it? When the team talk is given, does everybody... Yeah. So team talk, you're giving the team talk and you're Johan van Gran, and you're my new head coach over there, and he's telling me one thing. Do I just make sure? What do you think about that? Should I do that? Would this get me picked next season?
Or is that Johan? You have to leave the room now.
Secrets. I mean, Munster have Irish teams have been known to draw Bath quite a bit, so maybe there's a bit of that. It does feel that he's obviously got a huge role already, and as I mentioned earlier on, the halftime team talk on Saturday was mostly Graham Roundtree. So maybe if there's a lot of forward problems between now and the end of the season. He's going to have a lot to say anyway.
We wish him the very best because they really need it, and he seems like a really proper stand-up guy who has the potential to unite that team. And that's what they need.
A touch of the Farrells, touch of the Northern English, isn't there? I don't know if he's from the North, but he's Leicester was his team. And there's a touch of that kind of grit about him, isn't there? So let's hope he does well. Scotty Scheffler revealed that he kind of lost it yesterday morning before the Masters. But when he was on the course, he was outstanding in that 3-shot win, an incredible run, 4 wins out of 6, world number 1, just has taken off like a rocket and won the green jacket last night, his first ever major title. We'll talk about the brilliant Irish display in a moment. But let's hear it now first from Scotty Scheffler.
I cried like a baby this morning. I was so stressed out. I didn't know what to do. I was sitting there, I was telling Meredith, I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this. I'm not ready. I don't feel like I'm ready for this kind of stuff. And I just felt overwhelmed. And so she told me, who are you to say that you're not ready? Who am I to say that I know what's best for my life? And so for what we talked about is, that God is in control and, the Lord is leading me.
Oh my God, I knew it!
If today's my time, then it's my time.
Ridiculous. Oh my God.
Well, you say, oh my God. So,
like, the thing is, like, obviously, it's a remarkable story from Scotty Scheffler because he's obviously lived a life.
It's a remarkable self-serving piece of nonsense. That's what it is. It's like, it wasn't. So I was chosen from all of the human beings on this planet today to win this on the basis of the fact that I prayed more than everybody else or something. It's nonsensical. It's nonsensical, and it should be called out when we see it because, like, it's nonsense. God didn't win the tournament. Nobody else shot more than 10 under. That's what happened.
Only God will be able to judge the fact that he's clearly lied on his birth certificate as well. Like, I mean, his whole life has been some sort of lie. John Duggan has gone here. The 1996 born Scheffler is clearly 1986. The oldest looking 25-year-old of all time. John Duggan's gone. Duggan's gone.
Look, the guy, he has his religious faith, and it's fair enough, so.
Yeah, but, like, God did not win the tournament. God did not pick him to win the tournament. God did not shun every other human being on the planet to go, I'm choosing you today to win this golf tournament. Because if that's what your God is spending his time doing, that's a pretty lazy God who's not paying attention to what's going on in the rest of the world.
Okay.
But Scotty Scheffler is so important that, like, screw the people of Ukraine, screw the people of Yemen and Palestine. God's paying attention to who's getting the green jacket tonight, baby.
Maybe he just loves golf, God.
Thank you, Meredith, for reminding me that God is a golfer and a basketballer.
Yeah.
And a high jumper and a long jumper and a hockey player. And Jesus, he's got a lot of time in his hands, this God, doesn't he?
He doesn't follow virtual insanity tips, God, it seems. Clearly he hadn't put any money on your... Oh, maybe God selected Rory McIlroy and
clogging up
Shane
the
Lowry
arteries of John's brain at the moment with bad thoughts. You need to commune with your Jesus and find whatever your God is, John, so you can get slightly better tips, because they were pretty good tips, but slightly better tips.
Cantlay and Peters were absolute flops, so I apologise for them. But everything I said about McIlroy was right, and Larry as well was placed. So I made 4/5 of the money back this week. So
That's a run for your money.
Wasn't that bad. So folks, look, I just love the passion here. That's why I'm laughing. That was just brilliant. Rory McIlroy. Let's hear from him now.
I don't think I've ever walked away from this tournament as happy as I am today. I've played a really good round of golf. It's my best ever finish at Augusta. It's not quite enough, but I'll certainly look back on this day with very fond memories and as I said at the start, it just gives me confidence going forward, not only into the next Masters next year, but to the rest of the season as well.
Well done, Irish golf. What a fantastic week for Irish golf. They didn't get the green jacket, but McIlroy second, Larry tied for third. I don't see players of this calibre coming through. We should enjoy it while it lasts, because I thought this was just fantastic and one of the biggest tournaments in the world. Maybe the Open is just as big or bigger, but this was a fantastic performance by McIlroy. Freedom of the McIlroy's freedom versus non-freedom. If he could just have more of the freedom rounds, then he'd be winning majors again. But I do think this is a step in the right direction. It's just that he was too far back. So they all talk about the backdoor top tens. I've been talking about it quite a lot, but I thought this was stellar yesterday. Like, obviously the last shot and the last hole was amazing.
Is it a side door top 10? Like, it's not the backdoor top 10.
No. It's impressive to finish his best ever Masters finish, to finish second. Like, he only could have shot maybe 1 or 2 strokes better yesterday. if he'd birdied maybe 15, 16, like he wouldn't have expected to birdie the last in the way he did. Look, once again, the conditions were ripe for him. The wind was down. He just needs to dial in his wedges a bit more. But I do think, looking at his body language, looking at his feeling, I do feel there is a major in him. We just know how talented he is on his day. He just needs to make that 2 to 3 days rather than 1 day. So Larry, on Saturday, he got frustrated. Yesterday, triple bogey, battled back well, but made too many unforced errors. I think McIlroy will probably take a lot more out of the week than Larry will, because how many more chances will Larry get? I think McIlroy will have actually more chances to win a green jacket than Larry will. Power as well finished Seamus Power in a tie for 27th, their final round 70, and Tiger Woods 13 over par. Amazing really that he just lasted the 4 rounds, because he was an obvious pain. So it was just really a resilience thing for him. But yeah, I don't know if Scotty Scheffler will be inviting you to the Champions Dinner next year, Ger, but
I wouldn't go.
Elsewhere, Meath ladies celebrating they beat Donegal yesterday. Women's Six Nations 29 8-point win for Ireland against Italy. And what a game, lads, yesterday. Like, this is the beautiful game. Liverpool, City. I thought City were the better team, but Liverpool had the resilience. And I think Guardiola would be disappointed with the timing of the concession of the second goal. But I do think still that City have the edge. But like Stephen and Brian were describing the game yesterday on News Talk and Off the Ball here, it was just... You don't need pantomime on the sideline when you have that quality in the pitch.
Yeah, it's true. Spurs, quick word.
Well, Harry Kane went to the Masters.
He had a good time.
So I'd love to know what private jet he was on. And Matt Doherty's out for the rest of the season. And I'm sorry for your troubles, Ger, after Saturday. I thought Villa would give us a game, but they didn't. And Stevie G, it's like he's got a bit of work to do there with their defence. But
yeah,
Son.
The gleam has come off Stevie G's early.
It has a bit, hasn't it? Yeah. And like he's got a bit of the Lamparditis, where it's he's got the tough words for the players in the post-match interviews, which I think I never liked that in managers. But Son and Kane and Kulusevski, an Arsenal being Arsenal, Owen. So thank you for being Arsenal, because I really thought Arsenal had turned the corner.
It felt that way. Right.
All right, lads.
John, good stuff. It's 8:56 this morning. If you want to get in touch with us, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Andy Dunn was on live commentary duty for Off the Ball during Munster's narrow defeat to Exeter. Here are some of his post-match thoughts.
So I was quite impressed with the Munster front five in that period, and at the same time the young dynamic back rowers who've not that much experience in Candellan and Hodnett did brilliant stuff, but it was all last ditch heroics, and that's not how they want to play. But if we're picking out anyone who constructively made a difference across the 80 minutes, to be honest, I would struggle. I didn't see anyone who was consistently doing their job in a constructive way. There were many people who had game or try-saving moments, and Conor Murray indeed had 2 of them. But on the flip side of that, his job as a 9 is to show and exercise a bit more control in the game, and some of his kicking was disappointing, to say the least. So it's a team with a split personality.
Alan Quinlan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How are you?
The Limerick Leader are confidently predicting that Graham Rentry has been given the job. They're reporting that this morning. Are you hearing something similar?
I am, yeah. Obviously, it's not confirmed, and I can't confirm it, but that's what I'm hearing. And I think it's a good appointment. I think some people would possibly want a bigger name with respect to Graham, coming from a head coach role in another top job or an international coach or something like that. But I think the most important thing, Jerry, here is I think it's a good call if Graham Rowntree gets it, because I think they need some consistency as regards knowing the players, knowing the problems, and trying to address them, knowing the culture, the little, things about players' habits, all that kind of stuff, who works hard, who needs to be G'd up a little bit more, how to motivate the group. I think the most important thing here is if he gets the job, is then who his assistant coaches are going to be, and changing the game plan for me, because we got big names the last time, didn't we? We got a big forwards coach in Rowntree. We got a big name in Stephen Larkham. Johan van Gran kind of came from nowhere really as regards getting the head coach job. So I think the most important thing. So I would, you know, if there is Munster fans out there who think, oh God, why haven't we got a Scott Robertson, or why haven't we got a Vern Cotter or some big name? I think this is a good appointment, a really good appointment, because he's right at the coalface and he deserves an opportunity. But I think the really important key here is assistant coaches.
Is there any whisper?
The players.
Any whisper of who that's going to be?
I don't know. Well, Mike Prendergast, who I'd be close to, was being linked for a period of time. Mike has been in France for 9 years, and I think I've said this openly before, that he's very well respected and liked for the teams he's been involved with in France as regards his attack. Racing are flying again, and obviously they have a big squad, but I think what he did in Oyonnax was really impressive, and Grenoble as well. And, you know, Bernard Jackman openly speaks about that as well. So look, from an attack point of view, that's the most obvious change that this team needs. And that's not just first phase or second phase. I think it's shape overall, skill set, decision making. And we saw that again on Saturday, the deficiency around decision making under pressure. Very obvious decisions when Exeter were down to 13 men. You know, simple hand catch pass stuff. Very obvious one, you know, the Ben Healy pass over the top to Shane Daly, then Craig Casey going himself. If he scores, you say right decision, but it was the wrong decision because he didn't score. But there was another one just before that where Mike Haley just had to put it through the hands. Munster had about a 3-on-1 and he cut back inside. So just game management and all that kind of stuff and making good decisions, I think. So the really important ones, and I think, look, JP Ferreira is gone as well. So what Munster really, really need, and this is just my opinion, is someone to inspire this group, to give them confidence. So a lot of defence coaches I've worked with over the years, you know, they can come in and they can give a real lift to the group regarding, you know, obviously their work rate is very good, this group, and their desire is there, and they're trying to get stuck in, and they're not lacking in that department. But just inspiring them to, you know, with the ball, without the ball, getting up off the ground, and so they need a massive lift, really. So I think the assistant coaches, trying to gel them together, and you know, I know it's going to be hard to get a Stuart Lancaster type coach of that quality. Maybe they will. I don't know, but I think that's really the key for me is the assistant coaches and the way they're playing.
Is there a sense within Munster at all, Alan, and this isn't necessarily in the near future, but over the next little while, that some of the coaches that they've let go do come back, the likes of Jerry Flannery and Felix Jones in particular? Now that the dust has settled a little bit, there's another change in the coaching ticket. Are conversations around those two individuals in particular arising once again at all?
I don't know, Owen. I think with Felix and Jerry, obviously it's pretty recent since they've left. Both have been doing really well, so I doubt if that will happen. I'm sure they will interest them if those coaches were available or interested. But who knows? If Graham Rowntree gets it, he's got to select his own coaches and see who he knows in the game and who he thinks will fit the job. I think he will understand the frustration out there. He can hear the mood music. He can hear the noise from the fans. He can see the frustration himself. And I think they have to change their whole approach, maybe to the media, to the public, to the way they speak to the fans, to the messages that are coming out, because it seems, and again, this is something that I feel is the situation, that they don't often get the noise and the music, the mood music that's out there. I know a lot of teams and a lot of sporting organisations, you kind of have to, you know, rally the troops, be resilient and block out some of the unfair criticism. But I think it's gone on too long now. You have to understand that there's a frustration there that is blatantly obvious to see, and it's been going on for a long time now. We've seen green shoots, if you like, of some performances in the last number of years, but the same thing has been said over and over. When you get to the business end of the season, it's coming down to structure and game plan. Look, to be fair, there's also a frustration maybe after the weekend that, like, they did show incredible heart. They did show incredible desire and effort and work rate. Just look at Keith Earl's tackle, some of the defending on the line. I think Exeter were in their 22 double digits and scored 2 tries. But the effort and all that, people are getting sick of that. They want more than just effort. They want to see, good decisions and the team having a real cut and a go and then taking their opportunities. Nobody expects them to be at the level of right at the top table, but the fans want to see progression. So I think there's a number of things that have to change, and I think that's the challenge for the new head coach. Build on the good young players, the positive, and some of the current players who I believe you can get more out of. And they're very, very stifled and stiff in the way they play at times. And when you go into big games that you have to win against the top teams, you've got to find a way to unlock defences and not rely on brute force. And so, going back to your original question on, I don't know, could you see Jerry Flannery leaving Quins at the moment when they're, he moved his family over to London, probably left in disappointing circumstances, and Felix as well, who's probably eyeing being part of the Springbok squad going to a World Cup next year. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that ship has sailed for now for them, but certainly in the future you'd love to see them getting back. And it's interesting how well they've done once they've got out of the system. It's not like they were, overachieving being in the jobs they were in Munster. It's clear that both of them have massive futures, and hopefully massive futures involved in Irish rugby at some level. So the performance then, there was, as Andy Dunn said, a mix of old and some new, and that sense that I think that one of the frustrations that Munster fans had was that the young players weren't getting a fair crack at the whip recently, but every time they do, they play really well. And actually that's why it must be quite exciting at one level that there is a vein of talent coming through, and it seems like the pipes are finally being switched on and that Munster are finally beginning to produce their own players.
Yeah, well, we've spoken a lot, Ger, about the core, a young group of players that have been kind of sticking their heads above water for probably 2 seasons now. Thomas Ahern is someone I think has the ability to go right to the top in this game. For various different reasons, he hasn't been able to consistently get up to that speed and that level. You saw Ryan Baird, the way he broke through with Leinster and Ireland. Thomas Ahern was kind of in a similar situation, but broke down a few times with injuries, probably had to learn a little bit more, was a bit raw. Some guys develop a little bit later in the game. He's a phenomenal talent. John Hodnett for me, who had a long time out with injury. He only came back probably in the autumn. And I think he's someone who, 3 turnovers in a game like that against a top English side away from home, was right at the coalface all the way through the game. Even Jack O'Sullivan coming off the bench, who has picked up a few injuries of late. His impact off the bench was brilliant as well. So, there is some positivity there, I think, as regards to young players, and you've got to hang on to that. You have no choice but to try and bring them through, and that's something that has to happen, and you've got to build on that. You cannot just, I've said this many times, you cannot just produce a complete new front row of international standard. It's something, props are hard to come by, and that's an area where they need more depth and some of the players to come through. Kenyon Knox, Roman Salanoa, I think they're players that have to actually step up next year. If they're good enough, they have to go there and make that step up. They have the potential to do that. So, and I think, look, it's hard to keep focusing and kind of trying to fool people by this, but this is a reality. They have some very good young players who need opportunities. Chris Cloete played against Leinster. I was asking the question, where's John Hodnett? Chris Cloete is leaving at the end of the year. You're probably going to lose the game anyway against a very good Leinster side. The hope was that Munster would obviously win it, but John Hodnett needs these type of games. He needs to learn on the run. His game isn't perfect, and that's what has to happen. So, look, if they get everybody in the field, we know this, and this is the reality. if they had everyone on the field, they're in a much stronger position. The amount of players they were missing, and you know, two players, Zebo and Dermot Barron, pulling out with illness as well before the game, does not help them. They need more squad depth.
Okay. What level of chance do you give them of going through?
It's one of those ones where you think, in previous years, I think that's a brilliant job. That's a great job to keep it to within 5 and possibly have won the game. But when you look back at the game and you analyse the amount of pressure they were under, you just cannot absorb that sort of pressure. They broke under that pressure the previous week against Leinster in the second half. But I think Exeter aren't as clinical and as dangerous a side as Leinster, so they couldn't punish them on that. And Munster were probably better defensively. They made some better reads in defence and put Exeter under a lot of pressure. So you think 5 points is a good thing, but I'd still be very, very cautious about when Rob Baxter and his side look at the game. They're still going to come with the same force, ferocity, set piece, pressure, ball carrying ability. And if they ask the same questions this week, it's going to be very, very difficult for Munster to keep them out. So I think it's going to be a tight game, and certainly there will be a huge fight. And I think Carberry and O'Mahony, if they come back, will help the situation. So it's still a very, very difficult situation for Munster. And they have a chance, but I wouldn't be saying they're roaring certainties to win this game, which is something we would have said in previous years.
Let's talk about Ulster and their win in Toulouse. Obviously helped with the red card after 12, 13 minutes. At the same time, they still had to then go and take on a baying home crowd who were trying to get at the referee and who didn't manage to. And they had to take their chances as well. It's like a classic smash and grab away from home performance that they nearly lost at the end, which we've seen them do a little bit over the course of the season, where they've been winning games and then for whatever reason a couple of tries late on has cost them a couple of times in Europe so far, and they got away with one as well against Northampton. So it's in them to have these roller coaster games. What are they going to take, and how confident will they feel for the return leg?
I think mentally, Ger, is the key. So many times in the last number of years we've seen these kind of performances from Ulster and then a drop off and a vulnerability or a mental weakness, if you like. I thought they showed incredible resilience to get this, to win this game, because even with the sending off, they were 13-7 down at half time. So it wasn't a case of Juan Cruz Malia was sent off after 7 or 8 minutes and that it was one-way traffic. They were still under a lot of pressure. Toulouse went and scored again after that and took the lead. The strength and depth that they have is phenomenal. So I thought mentally, the way they were able to cope and stay calm and believe in themselves. And, they had an incredible win in Clermont earlier in the season. So those kind of experiences make you a better team and take you to the next level when you get to knock out rugby at this level. So, I thought the fight. And look, Dwayne Vermeulen was signed by Ulster as a 35-year-old for these types of games. And I just think his presence on the field is making a huge difference to this team. And the real key for me is that mental side of it, Jerry. He might not be the standout player every week, but his presence, his physicality. I thought Treadwell was brilliant as well for him. And I'd be really optimistic and positive about where he's going. He's improved his game, become much more physical. And then, of course, Balakoon. What a star. I just think this guy has that X factor. He's big, he's physical, and he's incredibly quick. So they become tougher. They become a tougher side. You go back in January when Munster were reduced to 14 men, and they were dreadful in Limerick in that second half. They tried to kick the ball away and contain Munster, and Munster punished them and won the game in the end. They kept playing was the most important thing here, and hanging on for dear life at the end. But that's a big result. That's a really, really big result that puts them, in my opinion, into the quarterfinals.
Right. You think they're going to see this through?
I think they'll beat Toulouse in Belfast. It'll be very tight, and look, Toulouse are a very dangerous side, but I just think that win they're not chasing a score now, which can be a little bit dangerous because they're a type of side that are better when they're taking chances and moving the ball a little bit. Because I'd be concerned about their game management. When they play with ball in hand, they're a very dangerous side, and that's when they're really hard to beat. So I think that's what they've got to do on Friday night.
Okay, that brings us nicely to the final game of the weekend that we need to talk about from an Ireland perspective. Do Connacht still have a chance?
You'd like to think so, but it's still going to be a really, really tall order. I think they'll take a fair bit out of the ability to dig deep themselves and the way they reacted in the game. I thought the Bumbiaki chat at the end was significant. I don't know if you saw it. Connacht were in a huddle, and he was speaking to his players and his team, and you could see that there was something in their faces that really believed that they can go to Dublin and mix it with Leinster. You've got to get everything right in a game like this, and I think from the EPCR's point of view, there was a perfect scenario, and from Leinster's point of view, because there'll be real intrigue. The game isn't over. They scored early in the game, John Porsche, and that gave them a lift, and they were ferocious. Can they do the same again? Like I said, a tall order, but I think they'd be very dangerous. Also, Leinster would be very, very silly to underestimate Connacht when they get going. I don't think they will, but look, you have to think Leinster are just too strong and will probably be a bit frustrated that they were sloppy at times. They had Connacht on the rack near the end of the game, could have scored a couple of tries, but I thought it was a great reaction, wasn't it, out of Connacht?
Should it have been a red card?
I wasn't definite on it, and I'm pretty hard on a lot of these tackles. I just don't think he put any force going forward, and the referee said he accepted the tackle. By the letter of the law, it should have been a red card, but I just don't think there was a lot of mitigation there, which brought it down to the yellow, and I think it was probably right, the yellow card.
It's funny because in commentary it seemed like they were straight away saying this is red, it's red, and the referee talked himself into yellow straight away and then nearly talked himself back into a red and decided in the end he was going to go with his instincts. Andy Friend says fine. The referees and the papers are saying red, and I guess ultimately if you're going to make the decision that we're trying to change habits so that accepting the tackle or not, he would be lower, then it has to be red to condition people to say you can't tackle your head up even if you're a little guy and he's a little guy.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's factual. I just think it's very difficult for Gibson Park to go in a crouch position there when Kieran Marmion was being tackled. It's a hard one. And it tells its own story that we're having so much debate about it. Some of these are pretty obvious reds. I just think it's really, really... The one thing I always look for in these tackles is that forward movement. And there was none of that out of Gibson Park. So it was a situation where Kieran Marmion came into him.
Yeah.
There is shoulder into the face. And I think it's the only reason. Look, if it was one of your players, if it was your son playing a match... you wouldn't be going up after the game to Gibson Park saying, why the hell did you do that? That was really dangerous what you did. You know, it's kind of one of those ones. So I don't totally disagree with the people who are saying red, but I just feel it was just below the red card scenario. It could have been significant, and he would be a loss for him because he'd probably be out this week. But I think it was probably just about right.
All right. Alan, good stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
The two legs definitely works. We agree with that.
I guess we'll know next week with regards to some of the comebacks that are probably going to happen over the course of the weekend. But certainly, if you're looking at it from the three games involving the Irish teams, you're pretty excited for all three of the games.
Yeah, and the back-to-back was always a very interesting week, and it was a good idea in terms of the concept, and it certainly it provoked rivalries. But is there room in the extended season for it? I don't know, because this is the only part of the competition where it happens.
Yeah.
Would a final where it really work very well? two-legged final?
Yeah, but possibly.
You're going to have two very good teams.
Yeah, and I guess you have got a couple of blowouts in the final, but chances are it's the round where it's least likely to happen. It does. I don't know. Two-legged finals. I like the occasion of a grand final. Like the semi-finals, maybe might be the time to do it.
The UEFA Cup two-legged finals used to be brilliant.
What was the last one?
I can't actually remember. Is it around the same time as the Champions League gets born? So mid-90s.
Right.
Is that when it stops?
Probably. I don't have any recollection of it, to be honest.
OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Brian Kerr commentated on Man City's thrilling draw with Liverpool at the Etihad for Off the Ball yesterday. Afterwards, he spoke with OTB's Stephen Doyle about Liverpool's regrets.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This Tuesday, Ireland head to Sweden in a bid to keep their World Cup hopes alive.
Flashes across and it's in the back of the net.
Can they get the goal they need to overcome the world number 2?
On the left-hand side of the air, in towards Carusa, behind Carusa, and Lucy Quinn applies the finish.
OTB Sports will keep you up to date with the action as it happens.
McCabe, 25 yards out, in towards O'Sullivan with the header, and a hat-trick.
Full live and exclusive commentary on Tuesday at 5:30, only on OTB Sports Radio.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you're an existing FBD customer, you'll get 15% off a new van insurance policy. It's how we're keeping you and your van on the road. Visit fbd.ie or contact your local branch. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. Terms and conditions apply. 15% discount available on new commercial motor policies only when an existing FBD farm, business, car or home policy is in place. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Commercial motor insurance is underwritten by FBD Insurance plc.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with exfoliating bar.
And I just wonder with the Liverpool performance over the 90 minutes, do you think they will have regrets coming out of that game today?
I would, if that's what he said, I'd say they will. I don't think they played to their best, but they played as well as they were allowed by the opposition, who were particularly superb in the first half. I thought the scoreline at half time flattered Liverpool. The fact they were only 2-1 down. But they come out in the second half with a great attitude from the off, and they got an early reward with a quick goal by Sadio Mane, brilliant pass from Salah. And then they had a spell maybe for the first 15 minutes where they were the more dominant team. Then I felt the game, it didn't quite go back to the pattern in the first half because Liverpool were a bit more solid defensively than they were in the first half. Obviously they didn't concede the goal, they got away with the offside disallowed goal. But I would say some Liverpool players would be disappointed that they didn't play as well as they can play, and I think they would be the ones in the middle of the pitch. I thought at times Fabinho was off, several misplaced passes, and Jordan Henderson didn't influence the game that much. Thiago had little bits and pieces from him, as with Jordan Henderson. I mean, it's harsh to be critical of anyone that played in the game because it was such a magnificent game, such a high level technical qualities required with the intensity and the pressure players were under when they received the ball. There was no let up. But I think overall Liverpool would be happier with the result because they didn't deserve any more than the draw, whereas City played well enough to win the game. But they are probably content with the result as well. That's why it's funny in football, when you get two teams that could be both quite content with a result before the match, which is a draw, it can often work out that way. That's what happened today. City are content enough. It keeps them with the 1 point advantage. And the easier run in, whether they like it or not, or whether they'd be prepared to admit that, when you look at the fixtures, they have an easier run in than Liverpool, who have a few very difficult games, including Manchester United, Everton and Spurs. So, you know, you can say we as we were before the game, but we're not, because another game gone, and Liverpool are no longer in control of their own destiny. Even if they win all 7 games, that doesn't win them the league, because Manchester City could win all 7 games also.
All right, it's 23 minutes past 9. It's Brian Kerr speaking after the 2-2 draw yesterday. We'll talk about that in a moment as well with Nathan, but first I think we're starting with the golf. Nathan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads.
How was the Golf Weekly chat last night?
Hopping. Absolutely hopping. I was a bit concerned. I was over in Manchester yesterday that I was going to miss the back nine, but my flight got delayed by a handy 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think it was, which meant we got to see Rory McIlroy's hole out from the bunker in all its glory. Though I am feeling the effects now. It was getting pretty excited for a little while as Rory travelled up the leaderboard. Though I think everybody felt that this was always in Scotty Scheffler's hands. It was a pretty remarkable weekend performance. At no stage. Maybe when he missed that third putt, for a split second you thought this is going to be the greatest meltdown in the history of sport. But at no stage did he ever look like he was going to collapse. At no stage did he ever look like the nerves, the pressure, the monumental achievement that he was about to have was going to get the better of him. And you'd have to put that down to the form he was coming into it. And for the chasing pack, that must have been what was most difficult. This wasn't Charles Schwartzel at the top of the leaderboard who came into the event with 6 missed cuts, or the world number 60 who was having a good run at it but didn't have it to back up. Like, Scheffler's played the best golf in the world for the last 2 months and he just kept doing it.
Do you not think holding out in the third yesterday kind of settled a little bit of an early wobble? Would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he didn't.
Well, if that ball had ran on 10 feet past and he misses it.
Yeah.
But golf is the one sport I always think there's no what ifs. You can't get into what ifs because it's such a mental game that if one thing happens, another thing happens. So, you could say the same for any amount of players over the last week who hold out from certain areas. If Rory McIlroy doesn't hold out on 18 yesterday, are we talking about the fact that he got himself into contention with the Eagle on 13 and then pulled his drives on 14, 15, 17, 18 when the pressure was on?
Yeah, we are, and we should be.
Are.
I think that's the bit which tempers my expectation that Rory's back. That conversation that Butch Harmon was willing into existence on the TV commentary, and it's just we can't say that until he wins something. We can't say that because he's capable of having final round heroics to nearly do something. He's capable of having second round heroics to nearly make the cut in his home open as well. Like we have seen Rory be capable of surges in the aftermath of playing really badly, and we're told it's a breakthrough moment, and there's been no breakthrough moment since his last major, really. Like he's been very good, but he hasn't been the best golfer in golf really since that period. Just to go back to Scheffler, you weren't convinced in the build-up. I do remember you saying Scotty Scheffler's the world number one, but he's not really the world number one in our preview. He's definitively the world number one right now. Why were you doubtful about him over the last while? What was it that he's done this week that was new for you?
I don't think it was doubtful. I think it was that he came so quickly to be world number one. I say he came so quickly, like he has been, around the block for several years, working his way up from college through the Corn Ferry Tour. He wasn't this superstar at 21, and he was a player who hadn't won in 70 PGA Tour events. My doubts over this week were his form on the course. I think his 19th was his best finish in his 2 previous Masters. That when you're comparing him to a John Rahm or Colin Morikawa, was he at that elite level? Well, if I had any doubts, he quashed them all this week because he was unbelievably elite. And this is one of the great runs of form that a golfer has gone on in recent times, to win 4 out of 6 events, like 4 events in 2 months, and all big events. Like Phoenix. Phoenix is the course where you're playing 17 and there's 160,000 people there. Beats Patrick Cantley, one of the other best players in the world, in a playoff. Wins the Arnold Palmer Invitational, wins the World Match Play, beats a lot of quality players. So sometimes you just it takes time for players to settle into your conscience, I guess, that they are among that absolute top elite. And maybe it's the addition of Ted Scott in the bag, that here's a 2-time major winner with Bubba Watson who has brought another level to his game. But Saturday night in particular, he just had such a brilliant attitude. Himself and Charles Schwartzel seemed to be really enjoying it out there. He was relaxing himself by allowing himself to talk with Schwartzel. He was very different on the back nine yesterday when, I guess he didn't want to get sucked in with Cam Smith when it was all going horribly wrong. Yeah. Exactly. But he is a player now who, you're looking at Southern Hills where he says that's his favourite golf course, where they're heading for the USPGA in a month's time. And this is where the trend is with golf, that players come hard and fast. They win all around them, and then they just slow down a little bit. And this 9 months ago, we thought John Ram was going to go win 3-4 majors. Maybe Colin Morikawa still will. Maybe John Ram, I wouldn't be at all surprised. But we thought when he won the US Open, he'd probably go win the Open straight afterwards. And he'd probably come and win the Masters as well. And he'd be the dominant world number one. But there's about 10 players who are all at such a level. And you'd include McIlroy in that. And that is where he is right now. Is he, this line of when Rory's best stuff is better than everybody else's. All 10 of those players' best stuff when they're on it is better than everyone else's for that day. So we've had this at the Masters. Most probably Jordan Spieth is the prime example, who does this every second year, where he goes on a run on the Sunday and you think this is going to transform his season, and it doesn't happen. And like, that's the challenge for Rory. Like the stats around his major form since 2015, 35 over par on the first round, 68 under par in the other 3 rounds. So he's starting slowly. He's leaving himself with way too much to do. And we just don't know, if he starts well, what pressure does to him. There's no question. There may be no better golfer in the world when the pressure is off than Rory McIlroy. But that ain't golf.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to know when he felt the pressure was off. At what point, and then what point does the switch get flicked, and what triggers that? And like, look, somebody who is a better psychologist than any of us will be able to hopefully help him at some point to analyse that. But you just wonder, is it going to be too late when the penny drops? Like, whatever. So he missed the cut last week, and it was you, or was it John had the stat that like he's won 3 or 4 times having missed the cut the previous week. He practiced a bit more around Augusta than he has done in previous years. He definitely was feeding off the energy of the crowd, it seemed, but still the driving let him down at key moments when there was an opportunity to put a bit more pressure on Scotty Scheffler, and just for him to tighten his butthole a little bit and see exactly what difference that was going to make to him. So I don't know. And
he was the best driver in the field up to that. He was the best driver in those opening few rounds, even when he was struggling with the putter and with his approach play, because that's what killed him particularly. And that was the main question mark coming in. Like around the greens, I think again he was better than anybody this week. But it is from 120, 130 yards that you do look back when you lose out by 3 shots. And again, I don't want to go into whataboutery, but how many times was he standing in the middle of the fairway and failed to hit a green? Like when the pressure is on in the first and second rounds.
Yeah, and that gave Scheffler the arm's length that he needed to coast through the final 9 holes without actually ever really looking like there was going to be any issues.
The other problem is pressure now comes on. We just to finish on Rory, we did touch on it beforehand. Like he'd never come in to a Masters in a more low-key way, with no great signs of form, with everybody obsessed with Tiger. Barely remember Rory's press conference being on the television. Now we're going to Southern Hills, where it's all going to be on Rory again. Well, you basically, the smile on your face said you're back. The smile on your face in the post-round interview said you're going to come and the best of Rory McIlroy is returning. That brings a lot of pressure. You can't even think about the Masters because so much can happen and always tends to happen in Rory McIlroy's life from an April to an April. The biggest issue for McIlroy, as along with the pressure, is the amount of good players that are out there. Like Scotty Scheffler a year ago, was a good player. Now he's a great player. Yeah. John Ram, Colin Morikawa. Yeah. Every year there's 2-3 guys coming out of the American college circuit.
When is
who can almost do what he can do.
When is the next Golf Weekly dropping?
Oh, next couple of days. Today or tomorrow.
Okay, great to see the urgency post Masters. That's the business. That's what keeps the numbers rolling in. I love the way you're quoting Ronan Keating when you're talking about Rory McIlroy too. Speaking of smile on your face, you had one yesterday. Was
wow.
You were on the sideline and the touchline, and you obviously had good seats for the game between Manchester City and Liverpool.
I just went down to watch the warm up before the game, get as close as possible, see what was happening.
Was this an anniversary present from your wife? As Owen pointed out in the quiz, of course, it was your anniversary weekend. You're obviously, you know how to woo a lady. You bring her to the football.
Well, and she didn't even get to go to the football. Even more upsetting for my wife. Yeah, it was some game. I know you've discussed it with Mark Lawrenson already. I've been lucky enough to probably cover 7 or 8 of these over the last 5 years since they came in, and every time you cannot be just wowed and blown away by the pace and the speed and the ability of the players to do these magical things while somebody is coming at you at 100 miles an hour to take the right touch and play the right pass at the right time. Like, it was perfectly in line with Mo Salah's pass for the second goal, and you didn't even see it was on because the player who was nearer to him was the pass. You thought that was the simple pass, but Salah can somehow see with the game moving at that speed that this is the pass he should make. But then you go down and ordinarily when you're commentating, you're on air at that stage, so you're not really watching the warm-up and you're a bit further away. And this is a warm-up, so again, like Rory McIlroy, they're relaxed. There's no pressure. Of course, they can all do incredible things. But I was watching Jack Grealish and Alexander Zinchenko, and no offence to Zinchenko, but I would have said of that Manchester City squad that maybe he was skill-wise the least talented. That, you know, you've got a lot of great attacking midfielders and, left back, you sort of want him to be up and down the pitch, and that's his gig. The control that he was able to show in that warm-up as they were pinging volleys 50 yards to each other, whatever way you wanted him to control it, on his head, on his chest, little flick of the right boot, little flick of the left boot, 20 passes back and forth, the ball never hitting the ground between the two of them, well, except when Grealish let it go. Grealish was very sloppy in the warm-up. You don't want to read too much into a warm-up, but maybe they're told to relax, chill out. You're not going to be on the pitch for an hour. But like Zinchenko was dialed in. Grealish was having a good laugh down there. Which maybe sums up why he wasn't in the team at £100 million to start that match yesterday. But it's funny the difference again you see when you're watching there and on television, because I heard a lot of people say the atmosphere was flat. I can't remember a game at the Etihad where the atmosphere was quite as electric and relentless as it was yesterday. There was a real feeling that this was a big game.
Well, that first half is as good of football as you're going to get, where there is real jeopardy of one team absolutely hammering the other for a small portion of it, and then the other team actually looks better for a smaller portion of it, and there is very good finishing, there's jeopardy, and there's crazy goalkeeping. It was brilliant.
It was, and to be a defender in either of those teams is a high risk gig. Like, you are constantly put under pressure by your midfielders who will trust you. They'll knock the ball back to you no matter what the position is, and they will expect you to be able to control that, to pick out the right pass, to be able to ping it 20 yards, to be able to ping it 50 yards. So yeah, the first half was maybe more exciting. The second half, quality wise, was far better in terms of both sides were properly in it. And it's hard to pick a player who played poorly. Maybe Fabinho was a bit slow at times on the ball, and that allowed City in the first half in particular to get on it. Jota likewise. Sterling wasn't really on it. But aside from that, Phil Foden probably wasn't in the running for man of the match because he didn't get on the ball enough. But Foden and Salah were similar. Every single time they could get them on the ball, they did something magical. Like Cancelo, you would say, had a brilliant game. Yet Salah skinned them 3 or 4 times in that second half. It was that sort of elite. You're looking at the best players in the world in their position going head to head.
We're at a time, you've been saying it was Man City's league for most of the year. Is it still Man City's league?
Yeah, I think the fixture list is so in their favour. And while Liverpool are comfortably ahead of Manchester United and Everton quality-wise right now, they are funny games. They're, peculiar games. They both sit back. We've seen this before with City. They know how to get the job done. There'll be moments where it looks like they're going to drop points against Leeds and they'll grab a winner in the last couple of minutes. I would be surprised if City don't win the next 7.
Of them. Yeah. Okay. All right, Nathan, good stuff. We look forward to the latest episode of Golf Weekly. You can subscribe now. Patreon.com/Golf Weekly for your updates on that. It's 9:37. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio today. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is Inside Park Harrington's Gaff. It's Splonk Sport at 3 o'clock. State of the Union with with Keith Wood at 4, and OTB Gold is our Lance Armstrong interview at 6. First, news coming through, 3 months for, it's been confirmed this morning, for Matt Doherty, ruptured knee ligaments. It's the medial as opposed to the anterior cruciate ligament, so an MCL instead of an ACL, which is the one positive for him. It's obviously devastating for him and the form that he was in, but that should take us to the start of the new season. Hopefully he'll be back ready to go as the first choice right wing back. Maybe he'll ease himself in over a period of time, but certainly things are looking good for him at Spurs. A reminder, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Ex-Ireland international James Downey joined John Duggan in studio to reflect on the weekend's Champions Cup action. Enjoy.
Let's start in reverse order. So Munster losing by 5 points to Sandy Park yesterday, and I think they take that actually.
Yeah, no, completely. I think, especially the way the game went, I think you look at that first half and Exeter butchered a hell of a lot of scores out there. They'll be looking at that going, how are we only 5 points ahead going back to Thomond? Munster will certainly take that going back to a packed Thomond Europe. It's another Munster European kind of get together in terms of they just kind of frustrated Exeter a little bit. A lot of errors in that first half especially. But I think couple of magical things, like Conor Murray's tackle with Chris Farrell, Keith Earl's tackle, John Hodness turnover. These moments are huge moments in Europe, especially. Just galvanised Munster, and again, they should have been done and dusted. And they weren't. They just kept on in there. Another massive performance from Munster. So they'll certainly take 5 points. And as I said, Exeter scratching their head going, how are we? They should be home and hosed, going into this return tie.
It was a strange one in that, as you say, they should have been out of sight. And then Munster had 2 extra players when Exeter had 2 in the bin, and maybe they didn't capitalise enough in that period.
No, I don't think they did. 13 men, we saw in one of the other games when they were down to 14 how much of a difference it can make. So 13, if you're smart, if you don't get too excited, try and get the ball too wide too early, you can expose the space and you can exploit them. Munster didn't do that, which is maybe something to look at further down the line if they get through this tie, that they're going to have to, against stronger teams, they're going to have to certainly score once against 15, never mind 13, but against 15. So that'll be an area of concern, but I'm sure they'll still be happy with the result given how many mistakes Exeter made and how many last ditch attempts Munster kept them in with.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rearguard action. Can they get more on the front foot, a bit more positive, a bit more cohesive within, say, we're talking 7 days?
Well, that's the question. Also, you got to look at the personnel changes. A lot of last minute ins and outs all week, and even last minute, like just the 2 guys, Zebo pulled out and Dermot Barron pulled out as well, day of the game. So that's going to change, I think, coming into this week. Hopefully Munster will have some players back, some bigger players back, which will add to that cohesiveness that you're talking about, who would have trained all week. So they'll go into this week buoyed by the fact that they didn't have their strongest squad, only 5 points, and they have that Thomond Park crowd behind them.
Andy Farrell was there at Sandy Park. Anybody he would have noticed positively?
Very impressed with John Hodness. Thought he was super at the breakdown. He had some crucial turnovers, especially on their own line, for such a young guy. He's really stepped up this season and come to the forefront. And then to see the old dog and Keith Earls just producing such a tackle to keep Munster in it, and these are the small things. Don't know if Andy Farrell will be overly analysing it too much in terms of who's going to bring to New Zealand. I think he'll be looking more so at these young guys. It's great that Munster are bringing through the young guys. So obviously missing a few players, these younger players, your Ben Healy's, like Gavin Coombs, obviously missing this one unfortunately, but these type of players coming through, he'll have a look and an eye on them, but bringing them to New Zealand in the summer tour.
Would you be a little bit worried in that Munster have to be strong, I think, for Irish rugby? They have to be the brand that they were and still are, but possibly not on the pitch, because there seems to be a listlessness and a bit of a drift with Munster. And I know the coach is doing everything professionally, but he's still a lame duck coach. He's still leaving. And to me, when you're not filling Thomond Park for the Leinster game, that's a red flag.
Yeah, look, it's a concern. I think as well, the whole doubt of who's coming in and who the coach is going to be, and there's still no clarity on that. Obviously an extremely strange situation when Van Graham, having signed a contract, goes to Bath, and everyone's scratching their heads now, and players are like, what do we do for the rest of the year? Obviously they want to produce and try and win in Europe and get some silverware, but the coach is going, so it's a strange one for those guys. I think Munster need to be clear in the next couple of weeks. It's got to be done sooner. They got to name the coach pretty soon.
Anybody you'd like to see do it? Roundtree or?
Well, look, he seems to be the favourite at the moment. I haven't heard too much, to be honest. I think it was down to two horse race. So Roundtree seems to. Well, he's interviewed I think 4 or 5 weeks ago now. So it's. I think he'll
bigger though than him, isn't it? It's bigger than Roundtree. It's a bigger issue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there is a bigger issue. Yeah, and in terms of that identity as well, I'd be glad that they brought in, say, someone who's kind of in there already in the system, who knows Munster, or even someone, if it's going to be Roundtree and you make him the head coach, you bring in someone underneath as well, be it a Mike Prendergast or someone who's got that Munster
DNA, as it were.
Exactly, running through him. Yeah, exactly. And you need that, I think, to kick forward, because you mentioned it there, you're not selling out of Munster Leinster.
But it's apathy. Apathy is the worst thing in sport. And for Munster, apathy?
I know, it is. It's so frustrating, I suppose, when you see it. that should be a sellout crowd. That's an Ireland trial, full of internationals. It's not as if Leinster sent down a half-cut team, a half-cocked team. You know, it's a strong team. There's a lot of Irish internationals. Yeah, there's a few on the bench as well, but Leinster are just so much better at the moment in a lot of what they do. It's not the comparison we used to have before, but we do need, for Irish rugby, we need Munster firing and firing on all cylinders. I do think that some of these younger guys coming through are pushing, and they'll get that exposure.
Who are they?
Well, like I mentioned, Hodnett, you've Dellen, you've Thomas Ahern, Gavin Coombs already, Craig Casey, you've Shane Daly. You know, there's these young guys, Joss Wycherley, these young guys are playing and they need to be exposed to this level of rugby. And it's only going to be good for Munster rugby. And, you know, people down there are talking, we need to have our local guys. And yeah, I completely agree with that. And they have some good West Cork lads coming through as well. But they just need to promote these lads, give them game time. I think Thomas Ahern especially, he had a chance last year to get 10, 12 games under his belt. And then all of a sudden he comes into this year and he's 25 games under his belt. Now he's still only in single figures, I think, if not just 10, you know. And Munster should be a further ahead of where they are. And they're still kind of playing the South African lads or different lads or older guys. It's a great chance for these younger guys to get exposure, for then the new coach to come in and kick on.
Look, it's a different game from 20 years ago, but you wouldn't have had legends of the likes of Raj and Peter Stringer and Anthony Foley and Quinney and Claw and Mick Golyev without them getting the chance and being able to stake their claim for a place in the team and then make an impact once they got that chance and got the belief.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly that. It's belief and it's that chance and it's consistency as well of performance, rather than here's your one chance, we make 15 changes, in you go, and then against Zebra, against the Treviso, you know, in you go for this and then you're gone the next week. They've got to be given a chance to prove themselves, to get some form. And especially when it comes to those big games, they have to be in the conversation. I think they're showing now by being played, be it through injury or whatever, but they're taking their opportunities now. And that can only be good, one, good for Irish rugby, and two, great for Munster rugby.
Joey Carberry and Peter O'Mahony should be back for the return game next week. It's leadership, I think, is just as important now as tactics. Look, they got to cut down on the mistakes, give away less penalties. Hopefully home advantage will help, but also having those key figures, those Ireland internationals there, will be a settler.
Yeah, and I think it's half a job done, albeit behind in the scoreboard. I think, as mentioned at the start, you take that. I think you bring back some experience, some of those key, and in key positions, you bring back a Joey who understands the game a hell of a lot, and you bring back a Peter O'Mahony who's in the coalface, and he'll understand what to do, make the right calls, just be level-headed. He's been in a situation, he's played internationals, he's been in these European games, and this is when you need leaders to stand up, and I expect him to do it. I really do expect him to turn it around this weekend.
I'd be interested to hear from Munster fans on 53106 about your kind of view of the state of the nation in the province, because it's such an iconic brand and club and province, and you want Munster. I felt just, James, the last 10 years since they've been winning a trophy, like they just peter out. They just peter out every season. Like even in the league final against Leinster last year, there was a lot of build up to it, and you know that Munster wanted it more, and then they just got beat.
Yeah, and look, and it's frustrating when you're watching it, and you expect. I think it's the expectation that the Munster crowd have, and the Munster support have, and the Munster players have, and they know it's kind of this noose around the neck of. When I was there, I lost three, if not three semi-finals, and it's getting close, but not close enough. And it's you've got to look at kind of grassroots as well, and they don't have the same resources, they don't have the same player base as Leinster do. They have to be smarter in how they bring players through. So it's across the board, and I do think they're getting it right. A little bit slower than, say, your Leinster, but they're getting it right. But it's going to take a couple of years for some of these players to come through. Munster want success now, which is completely entitled to. But I think it's going to be a couple of years before these players come through and eventually kind of catch up, so that every year they're on a level playing field with Leinster.
What has made Leinster the machine they are? Is it the schools? Is it?
That helps a hell of a lot. You know, you have the private schools which produce quality players, the coaching, the amount of numbers that they have coaching at schools level, and the quality of coaching they're getting as well. I guess they're lucky that they have the numbers that they do. And then they have the pick of the players then, so you get to choose the cream, and you can see why other provinces come in and look at trying to get some of their younger guys who Leinster mightn't take on, or like you look at a Keane Prendergast, for example, a Connacht who's been shooting the lights out, but didn't make Leinster's academy, and then went to Connacht, got an opportunity, and now look at him, he's been in an Irish squad. So I think there's these players that sometimes slip through the net at Leinster, that only Munster or Connacht would only give their left arm to have, you know. Sometimes I think the school system in Munster, you've only got a couple of schools that are coming through. You can't rely on the private schools. They have to rely on the youth. They have to rely on not just Cork and Limerick. They're going to have to go to Kerry, get some more JJ Hanrahans, you know, and kick into different provinces, more Tipperary lads, just spread it around, and just they've got to be identifying the right players nice and early.
Yeah, obviously with hurling as well now, a bigger deal in Limerick City as well. That's another factor. Ulster yesterday, this was brilliant stuff. In a way, you'd kind of wish it was only one leg.
Yeah, you would, you know, but then you would have been nervous in that last play of the game. Certainly would have been one leg, and I think Ulster obviously it's going to be a different game. I think Ulster did well. I think they'd be disappointed in letting them get in for that last score. Toulouse looked so dangerous even with 14 men, so dangerous. The counter-rucking put Ulster under a hell of a lot of pressure. I think Ulster got caught up initially in trying to play the game that Toulouse were trying to play, trying to get that loose offloads, not the way you'd normally expect Ulster to play, especially given a European tie, especially given over two legs. I just think that when they were smarter, when they played phases, when they controlled the ball, they looked a lot more dangerous than when they just tried to be loose and offload the ball. But you've someone like Robert Balakoon, who was immense yesterday, gets his hat-trick, he can score from anywhere. Like, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's a bit of a freak. And
have you seen anybody quicker of late?
No, just an open play like that, no, just so dangerous. Like, obviously in the sevens perspective, you've seen Jordan Conroy and how he is so fast and so quick, but 15s is so much less space. But Robert Balakoon just is that phenomenal athlete. If you can stay fit, you'll have him straight away in that Irish national side.
For New Zealand?
Yeah, 100%. He's head and shoulders above lads at the moment, you know, in that wing position. He's just got that X factor, that kind of Simon Zebo where he can do something for nothing, and you need those athletes. And like in Ireland, we don't normally produce them, so to have someone like him can be massive.
So what's your take on next week then in Belfast? Because a lot of it is about Toulouse's appetite, and I always find in these situations.
I know, and it's been like that for years, and you've got to frustrate the French, and you know, I think if they just hadn't let them in for that score at the end, I think it's going to be a lot tighter. If they hadn't let them in, I would have said Ulster home and host. But they got that last try, and it's just given them a little bit of a glimmer. If they can score first in Ravenhill, keep the crowd quiet, could be sweaty palms then for the Ulster players and supporters. So you're 100% right. What Toulouse side turns up, and what's the conditions going to be like again? If it's going to be rain, playing
Saturday night, yeah. Connacht were always up against it on Friday, but they showed up. They did everything they could. I felt watching that.
Yeah, they fronted up, and you always expect. I don't mean that in a bad way. Considering how they played the week before, I think it was a good step in that direction. I felt they were extremely physical at Leinster, which you'd expect. I just think Leinster will have that freshness that they'll be able to rotate their squad a little bit more, while Ulster Connacht will have to roll out the kind of same bodies again. And it's attritional. There'll be sore bodies. They mightn't be able to make as many changes. Aviva is going to be a different atmosphere, different pitch. You know, it's not that tight pitch that you have in Connacht, and you expect that from Connacht, you know. But they did well, I think, to get the 5, to be within 5 again, and it sets it up nicely. To be honest, you know, I'm sure the Leinster mightn't say it, but I'm sure more bums on seats in the Aviva at the weekend rather than the tie home and hose. Who knows? Expect Leinster though to come through. I think there's way too much power, way too much nous as well.
Andy Friend's doing a great job there, isn't he?
Super, absolutely super. The way they've played, they have a super brand of rugby. He's been very smart in his recruitment as well. I think next year as well, even stronger again. Every year, the massive problem you have with Connacht is turnover of players. Every year they may lose 10 to 12 players. So you don't get that consistency. Someone comes in, someone plays well, and they go back to, say, a province where they're from or they started their careers. Well, if they can keep those players there, those core players, and bring in a bit more quality, such as your Porch, your Mac Hansen, who's been superb this year. I think they've been shrewd in their recruitment next year. Adam Byrne's been a great one. Josh Murphy, I think, is going to be huge. Peter Dooley. These players will come in and add so much experience just to help them get over that line of finishing out games, of that Leinster now of knowing how to win. Okay, obviously Connacht fans don't want to wait till next year, but I just think that they are going in the right direction, and Andy Friend's done a super job.
I think maybe this was good for Leinster because it'll sharpen them a bit, and I think that since Bilbao, since they won the Champions Cup and they looked like they were going to be the dominant side, they've been caught cold a couple of times, the Saracens and La Rochelle. Maybe Leinster need these type of matches before they go into the Clermont or Leicester game.
Yeah, I think so. I think it seems to be that kind of power, that power game that they seem to lose, especially when they played against Saracens.
Now, have they sorted that? Do we know?
For next year, well, Jenkins has come up, I suppose, for next season, but I still think they need that big kind of second row six, that Rocky Elsom type player, and I think Joe McCarthy, young guys come through who's got size. It's size, when you get to that level, it's about size. You saw the Toulouse pack, Rory Arnold, 6'10", you're losing Devon Toner, Rory Arnold carrying the ball, Meffalau in the second row as well. The size of these guys coming at you, there's 5 or 6 of them in that Toulouse pack, and it's going to make inroads. And La Rochelle, same thing, it's power. It's a power game that Leinster trying to play when you get to those semi-finals, finals, which actually get you over the line. So I think the way Connacht played, it's physical, it's tough, it's going to be similar. Connacht will try and make it similar, Leinster will try and make it more expansive, but I think when you do come down to semi-finals, finals, it's a power game.
Sean O'Brien and Dan Levy both retired this week, so Dan Levy had to retire immediately because of injury, serious knee injury, and difficult for him, and it's disappointing, and it's disappointing for us to learn the news. And then Sean O'Brien announced he was going to retire the shirt after a career which involved over 50 caps for Ireland, and then the tour of the Lions, and now he's been at London Irish. So 2 great servants for Irish rugby. Just start with Dan.
Yeah, look, what can you say about Dan Levy? And it's always so disappointing when someone has to retire due to injury, but something as bad an injury as this, he did so well to come back from it. He did so well in that rehab to get back. If you look at the form he has or had in 2018, he was probably the best player in Europe, if not the world at the time. And you look at him at that stage and you would have said, he's 24, this guy's going to be Ireland's back row for the next 10 years. And just to have a career cut short, he's still won a hell of a lot of things. It's going to be, normally you say he's going to be tough to replace. Leinster do have plenty of back rowers, but he's had an unbelievable career in what he's done in such a young age, but he'll be sorely missed. And to have someone retire at such a young age, it's disappointing for Irish rugby, disappointing for him. He's a smart lad. I'm sure he's got...
Are there support structures for people who retire early?
There are, yeah. No, there certainly are. And these guys, especially the kind of the top percent, will be able to invest in different things. Dan's smart as well. He would have looked at doing different things during his playing career outside of rugby. He would invest in different businesses and startups and that sort of thing. So he'll have plenty to get his teeth into. Not everyone's going to be as organised as him, say, but he certainly is. So yeah, look, you just hope he can maybe take a break from the game for a while and come back in some capacity, be it coaching or something like that. But you wouldn't want to lose someone like that to go off on their own. Yeah, it's terribly disappointing to see someone finish like that.
And Sean, he's had a glittering career, the Tullow Tank, obviously a bit out of sight at the moment because he's in London, but I just remember against New Zealand, was it for the Lions, he was just immense. Oh,
exactly the word. Colossal. He's one of these players where the Tullow Tank, everything you talk about him, he's so dangerous in what he did. He was so good in New Zealand. He was such a great career. Different to Dan, and that
so the same position.
But different to Dan, that he got to fulfill his career, and look, he's had bad injuries as well, and he's had the hip done, which is a pretty severe injury to have and to come back from. So again, credit to him for being able to come back from that. But he's gone over to London, out of sight, out of mind a little bit, especially in Ireland, but he's tipped away over there, maybe not done as much as he'd liked or been as successful as he liked over there, but what a hell of a career, you know, and he can, in years to come, speak to his grandkids and show all the medals he has, and he'll have done extremely well. I'm sure he released a statement saying he's certainly going to stay in the game, which is great, because you don't want to lose these guys who know what it takes to win, who've been at the top level, and you want them coming back and speaking to the younger generation and telling them what it takes to win, what it takes to kick on. So 2 guys who are gone, but hopefully we'll put more back into the game.
Well, that's it. Like if Sean O'Brien walked into any school in Carlow or anywhere, you know, just to talk about his career, and, you know, people would be lapping it up in the classroom.
Everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows what he's done, and he can certainly hold court, and he's a great lad, and I'm sure he'll be a success no matter what he does. So
next week, you think Munster are going to do it? Leinster are going to do it, and Ulster?
Yeah, no, I just think the home factor of Ravenhill will get them over the line. I'm sure it's going to be a tough one, even though they're the ones who are leading going into this tie. I just think it'll be a little bit tougher than I think, again, depending on which French side turns up, but I expect Ulster to do it.
And anybody outside of the Irish provinces that, you know, are the favourites, you think? Racing had a good win yesterday.
Racing, great win over Stade, yeah. I think they'll win. That side, obviously, La Rochelle still so dangerous, I think.
Rogers, La Rochelle.
Rogers,
like
La Rochelle.
Lampard's, Everton and Stephen Gerrard's Aston Villa.
Which one is La Rochelle then? Is
Rogers, La Rochelle.
Okay.
yeah.
But no, it'll be. I do think that Rog will be extremely dangerous, especially if they come up against an Irish province. I think if Ulster and Munster win, they face each other, so they've a bit to get through before that. But I think the power sides will be ones to watch.
And just before we finish, we share both something in common. James Downey, we're both Spurs fans. I can't believe what's happened. It's just, I woke up this morning, it was a bright day, it was a sunny day.
It's been a bright couple of weeks. It's great to see Spurs hopefully haven't turned that corner, and Conte seems to be working his magic, and long may it last. You know, it's Son's back, Kane just needs to score, and we'll be happy days.
Yeah, one day we might win a trophy, you know.
I'll take Champions League. All
right, James, thanks so much.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs razor with